Hey everyone, welcome back to the MindMajix YouTube channel. If you are looking to master Tableau Server and learn how to manage, publish, and secure analytics, you are in the right place. Tableau Server is an enterprise level platform that allows teams to publish, manage, and collaborate on Tableau dashboards and reports in a secure, centralized environment. It empowers businesses to make data accessible to everyone. In this course, we will cover everything from Tableau Server installation and configuration, user and group management, security, data source publishing, automation, and server monitoring. You will also learn how to integrate Tableau Server with other tools and manage enterprise level environments efficiently. By the end of this course, you will have the confidence to administer, manage, and optimize Tableau Server like a pro. And if you want to learn Tableau Server course with certification, then check out our course, where we will cover latest industry curriculum, hands-on projects, labs, mock interviews, and more. Before moving ahead, I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss any tutorials and courses from us. So let's get started and master the world of Tableau Server.
So this is the overall the course content I've just put together, whatever the Tableau has to offer in their official website itself, so that at least we know the content wise what to be covered. So this may not have a detail of saying like each and everything, but at a high level we'll look into each of this content, and then we'll be discussing in detail. So obviously we'll be starting with the entire architecture itself, and then followed by installation. And while installing, okay, what are the steps that we need to follow before even we gets installed? And then followed by the authentication, authorization, and the creation of site and whatnot. Okay, and then as we move on, we'll look into the other things. But yes, I'll be sending to this one maybe after this call. You can take a look, and if you have anything specific, so we can discuss that. All right. So if we talk about only about the Tableau, or the Tableau products or anything for that matter, right? So you all already know Tableau is a self-service visualization tool, and they recently bought by Salesforce, right? Maybe a year and a half ago, or maybe a year ago. So that is how that's where it got little more stronger, because the other visualization tools in the market, like the Power BI, which is more on which is quite stronger in terms of ETL, or in terms of the data manipulation transformation along with the visualization. So, but the Tableau was mainly focused initially only on the visualization part. That is when, in terms of the data preparation, data transformation was not that much interesting. If you heard about it, the Tableau prep or the Tableau data prep, right? It's still like evolving, but now the focus is more on the Tableau prep also. So the first one is all about the Tableau desktop, right? So this is mainly for development of dashboards. So you connect to your data sources, and then you build the visualization, and then that is mainly for the Tableau desktop. So this is a licensed version. And once I develop the dashboards, right, I cannot keep it to my local machine. I have to share with someone else. First thing is, in an organization, I have to put it on the share on a secure network where you can put, so you can use the Tableau server, or you can use the Tableau online. I'll put it next time then. So Tableau server, so this is mainly for collaboration in a secure network, so sharing and collaboration with the other users. So if I have 100 users, so I cannot send the .twp file or maybe .twbx file also. And obviously, every user has to be authenticated in the Tableau server, as you know. So mainly Tableau server is basically an in-house product, just like any other in-house product. You procure the servers. Okay, let's say my requirement is only for 100 users at the beginning, and then the minimum hardware requirement we need to look into it. How much CPU I need, how much memory I need, and then also how much disk space, along with the databases that the application team is going to use. So that part we'll be covering later on. And then we'll be procuring internally. So we have to take care of everything basically in Tableau server. But in case if you think I have only 100 users, and we don't have any plan for next couple, maybe let's say next 1 or 2 years, and I don't have any the Tableau server specialist as such, do you have someone who can do the work for me? Then we can say, then the Tableau says, okay, we can do everything for you. You just let me know what's the requirement. That's called Tableau online. So which is basically cloud version. Right? So everything will be taken care by cloud. So which means it's like hardware as a service, platform as a service, even application as a service. Everything they provide. So you don't need to worry about what hardware requirements are they using. Are they using Windows Server? Are they using Linux Server? How many architecture they are using? How big is the architecture? Do we need to worry about any of the latest Windows patches? No, you don't have to worry. They will create, they will install whatever the operating system that need. They will install the Tableau server, and then they will put the licenses, whatever it's required. But at the end of the day, they will give you an access where you can go ahead and create the site or just an application management kind of thing. If some user comes up, you can work with them or they can work with them. So this is equivalent to Tableau server, just that this is managed by Tableau. So this was mainly for the dashboard. So that's when the next one is come to Tableau. All about the data preparation, cleaning, cleansing, and whatnot before even you can do it online. This is also become a licensed product. So going forward, this is also a licensed product. So in case if I have just a simple POC kind of thing, I cannot have the Tableau server or Tableau online. But I have only 10 users, or I just wanted to get started. What I can use what is called as a Tableau reader. So this is only for reading purpose. You cannot edit or do anything, right? No editing. So you will share the .twbx file with me, and then I can open it on my Tableau reader. So if you wanted to change any small things, I cannot do anything. I cannot refresh. I cannot apply. I can do interactivity if it's already been enabled on my Tableau desktop report .twbx. But I cannot add my on as itself. So which basically means like a file sharing. If I share this file, you can just open it. You cannot edit anything. You cannot modify or anything. Just put it. And obviously we have what is called Tableau Mobile for the mobile users, both iOS and Android. So certain instructions has to be followed, right? As to the organization instructions, you have to connect to the VPN. And then even the dashboards has to be customized as to the mobiles. So that is something again for the Tableau Mobile. On a Tableau desktop, we know all you have to do is you just go ahead and you'll install the Tableau desktop. You get for a 14-day trial period. Your application owner will buy maybe 1 or 2 licenses, depends upon your requirement of how many dashboards you need to build it. And then the first requirement is what you go ahead and you install the database drivers if required on your local machine, and then you start connecting to the Tableau desktop. So one of the advantages we talk about it today, Tableau can connect to around 60 plus native data sources, so which means you don't have to worry about the connection parameters, connection settings, etc. You just open Tableau desktop, and let's say you want to connect to the Oracle database, use the Oracle, and then you need to have the database detail, and then you should be able to connect.
So by native data source, you mean the list that's on the desktop?
Right. Yeah, like Oracle, or maybe let's say the recent one, right? Redshift. Redshift's been there for a long time. Anything for that matter.
Yeah, the list is increasing.
Correct. Yeah. That list will be keep increasing, but I think today it will have some plus native data sources, starting from flat files and everything. We'll look into the the overall architecture itself. How does it look like, right? And then we'll discuss in detail. So I've put together already. So if you see the Tableau architecture, obviously, in order to perform any single activity, again, that's how it I would be taking an advantage from your experience, right? So today, one of the backgrounder process is running one of the job, and we say, this particular backgrounder took, let's say, maybe 10 minutes to complete the job. That means it's not an individual backgrounder process alone could complete it. So it's a Tableau server is basically, or not just Tableau server for that matter, any server. It's a collection of the multiple processes that work together to complete a specific job. Even if I wanted to simply assume that I have shared you the one of the just a workbook URL. And then when you try to open it, if it opens for you, behind the scenes, there are multiple processes work together, and successfully it was able to complete the entire process. That's how we are able to see the workbook. But again, everything is so quick and so fast, but we'll be breaking that into little more detail. Okay, based on, again, not everything should be as is, because nobody will, or for that matter, any product won't share the details of exactly everything, how it should work or how it works. But whatever the documentation says, and based on our experience and understanding, we'll see how it, how it is, in terms of the overall architecture. So recently they've been start adding a couple more things which wasn't there in the earlier versions, like one I could think of right away from the screen is the Ask Data. Ask Data been newly introduced in maybe an year back, I think, but we'll look into that in also in class. So this was not there in 10.5 or 2018.2 or something. And then this Ask Data is again closely related with the Elastic one also. So these two components are one, and even these are all started from 2018. So actually Tableau was totally different. We used to call it as pre-TSM and TSM. Now everything is TSM, so that way you don't have to even know what was that earlier one. So we used to be, now today we are running everything like this, like TSM status, right? So before we used to run like this tab admin status. So this is the till 2018.1. Yeah. So before TSM and after TSM. So it is fine. Alright, so if you see, as I said, so Tableau Server is a collection of the multiple processes that work together to complete a job. So if you look into it, they have been broken down into the multiple parts. So we'll be looking into each of these ones for today's class. I'll open the current document right away, whatever that we have. So that way we don't miss out anything and we understand each process what it does and how the flow works. That I have in the other slide. So how do I know I'm in the current one? So if you see here, right, this is current, which means this is the current version. So sometimes, because obviously whatever the current version may not be our version. Okay, let's say on your organization, if you're using 2019 or 2020, you have to look for the specific version of the document, because if you look for this current version, changes will be there. But on the internet, Tableau, whenever if I simply go to your next tab and try to open it, it always opens the current version. So pay attention to this one, and specific version settings you need to apply in case if there are any changes. So this is the current version. I think if I replace this, it should work actually. 2019.2.4 or v underscore something. Alright, so if you see here, right, so obviously the first, we'll look at a couple of things, right? We'll only be we'll not be looking at how the flow works. That we'll be looking at maybe tomorrow. But we'll understand one by one which are the main process, and that will help you for the troubleshooting purpose. They have been designed into a couple of things. So obviously, the gateway, right? The gateway is the one first. Now I'm requesting something, user requests something that comes to gateway, and then based on the gateway, it will be sending to this user interface. And they've been, been designed into subcategories here. The first one, at least right now, is the major one is the Tableau Server Administration Agent, and that is the part of here, the controller agent, which is the management layer. So this, if I open this agent, right, so you need to understand definitely what it does, right? So first thing is it monitors the coordination service for the configuration changes or the topology. So today you go ahead and say somebody given you, or you wanted to change some configurations in the Tableau. Let's say your background system limited to maybe like 3 hours, and then you wanted to increase or maybe decrease for the performance activity. Then you go ahead and you change something. So who will monitor that and make sure the changes has been done? So this agent is responsible or something like that, right? So you can see the administration agent will monitor the coordination service. This coordination service is been taken care by the Zookeeper that we have on the next one, but it will monitor the coordination service for the changes to the configuration or a topology. Let's say today you have only 2 backgrounders and then you want to increase maybe 2 more. Again, the administration agent will also play a role to monitor those changes and to deliver that new configurations for each services. So this administration agent will check that each of the service for status, and it will report this back to the coordination service. So Zookeeper is the one which is responsible for all the coordination service, and all other services will work with the Zookeeper or the coordination service for each of the status report kind of thing. Somebody has to report it. So we don't have to do anything, when installing Tableau Server or any of that matter. This is only for the learning purpose. So this process will be automatically configured for you on each node of the cluster. If you have a 10 node, I think this will be done on all the 10 nodes. You will not be seeing to configure outside it, which means today I've already installed on this box for training purpose. And if you see today here, right, so okay, so you had access. So these are not being visible here, but where it will be the tab admin agent controller, everything will be visible on the TSM. So the TSM, what is the TSM default port? So it is 50. So it's not taking the local host, though I should actually take the local host. I don't know why. So if I open this TSM page, it's basically taking server 2026.8850.login. But it should even take the same thing. Let's put local host here. right? So if I go to the status page, right? I believe you already know this one. That's why I'm just trying to skip here, but we'll be covering now. If you see here, you will not be seeing here. So this is your administration screen where you don't see the the agent or a controller. This is not the place, but you will see it on the TSM screen. On the TSM, if you see, and the bottom, if you scroll down, you will see that somewhere. TSM controller, you will see. I think agent, you don't see this. So this is like the part of that internal, internal installation itself.
And I have a question here.
Hmm.
Actually, two questions. One is like, is there a reason why Tableau didn't include all this stuff on the server status page?
Right. Because you don't configure that. Say for instance, today I can configure how many application servers I need, right? I can go ahead and edit it here. So if you go to any of the configurations, I can edit application service too. And for example, the interactive microservices, maybe for their own, the product purpose, right? They believe we don't need more than one. If I don't need more than one, then I don't have to even enable. So that's how if you see certain things, for example, cluster controller, right? You need only one cluster controller. But again, I do not know exactly why only certain process has been shown up on this one and why not something. Say for example, cluster controller is they're saying you can just shown up, and why not an admin agent or a controller? I think it's more of specific to Tableau internal things, and they thought maybe anyway you don't have to configure that, so you don't have to even do it from an administration perspective. So this is, you need to think from an administration perspective, right? A server admin can go ahead and log in everything. This is more of internal, the Tableau services manager perspective. This is where we see all the services for the configuration. I don't have this.
For purpose of monitoring the server, which one gives you more reliable information? Because sometimes what I see at my job is on the TSM, it's let's say the application server is showing green, and
Right.
on the page that you have opened, it shows red.
Correct. Right.
So there is a
So
difference.
that's a good. Yeah, that's a good question, right? So this is for Tableau Services Manager. So I'll tell you what all you can look, and then I'll tell you a reliable one that you can trust it. Tableau Services Manager. I'll show you all the multiple things so that you can look for wherever it is. So it's the Tableau administration. So what happens, right? Whenever somebody complains that I cannot log in or something, first thing is this is the page that we look into, right? And we'll check everything is running. Mainly the licensed services, like these are all not a red ones. And then you can also check into here. You check this one. Tableau server is in the running state. But we don't rely on any of these two. Sometimes what happens, right? The check that it does for every couple of hours or minute, it might show one may be red, correct? One may be down, or the health check is not completed yet. So what the best solution is, you go to the machine and say TSM status -v. -v is just the actual, what's happening in my screen. So I'll go to command prompt. The good part is you don't have to run. So when you do that status -v, the moment if any of the service is down, then it will say in a degraded mode. If it says running means all the individual process that has to be run is already running. So first you focus on this part. This is very important. If it says running means all these process, whatever supposed to be run is already running. Assume that Elasticsearch is in an error state. Assume that administrator is in an error state, or any of the license process. Maybe let's say one of the data server is running is corrupted. Then what would be this status? This status it won't say running. This status will say degraded. Any of a single process is not running, it will say degraded. So pay attention to this one. And for our interest sake, you can also check running once. Just you can scan once. Everything is running. Then you don't have to worry what is being shown here. So during your weekly recycle, or maybe during the Friday evening, right? Whenever you have a plan to restart the Tableau servers, then this will pick up. Assume now this is a red, one green. But if I come back to here, then what I'll be focusing on? My focus will be on the VizQL server. I'll say both are running. So My reliable source is from the TSM status icon. So you can just check both are running state. Even if says one is down, that still be fine. It should pick it up during the next restart. Alright, so coming back to so this is the first one, right? So administration agent, we don't have to configure anything. This will be configured for you on the each node. And then you can look for it. So the process is administration agent, and so this is when it comes, right? So what happens whenever, and then if you wanted to look for a specific login, you can always look for. So this is the default path. It depends upon where you install your Tableau server. We'll talk about this path little later. So in case whenever Tableau server this fails, obviously all the Tableau servers on the same node will display as an unavailable. This agent is very, very important. Okay. Usually, once the TSM starts, this will never go down. Even if you stop it, this process will be usually running. Tableau server agent and the controller. Tableau server will continue to work as expected. However, you will not be able to make configuration or topology changes on the cluster in case if this one goes down. Because as I said, will be responsible for this configuration changes. So whenever you see you apply some configuration changes and then you open and see, and if that is not there, which means maybe an administration agent is not working as is, then your focus should be come back to this TSM screen 8850 and then look for the administration agent. You cannot do basically anything here because this is already been shown as a one TSM controller. It doesn't even say TSM agent. I think you have to again rely on the command prompt itself. Let's say again TSM status icon V. The better we always rely on this one. Right, so administration agent and the control. Okay, these two. Even if this is not running state, it will not be showing as running. It will be just maybe unavailable, and then you can look for which server, which process is not. But usually it's a very, very less. I haven't seen anything specifically. Only this part is going down. I believe we can also see the process directly on the services.msc page as part of your installation. So if I go to, that's again one more important, right? If I go to task manager, not task manager, you can go from task manager also. You can go to details, and all the our Tableau process will be starting somewhere like a run hyphen. That's how the process can be identified. Now if I right click for the pattern and go to services, and then okay, this you can see these are the the major processes that Tableau would be working on. Also, you can see, the status is running and what is the utilized. So we'll talk about this a little later. So don't worry about it, but I don't want to again mix multiple things. Okay, this is the first one, which is responsible for the coordination and making the changes to configure in terms of the topology changes or the configuration change. The next one is application service. So application service, it's basically the Viz portal one. Viz portal is the one which handles all the web applications. So application server basically does all the authentication, authorization kind of thing. Whenever a request comes to the gateway will send the request back. Gateway will forward the request to the application server. Application server will receive the request from the gateway and send it to the repository and other sources for all the web applications. And if you're using any of the APIs, all the REST APIs, this will be taken care by the application. This is a licensed process, right? So how do we manage whenever an application server goes down? Same thing. Usually at times, right, it says, this is very important again. Whenever you say maybe for an hour or two, you might see this is down. Sometimes it will pick it up later. Basically, whenever anything is down, entire server, not just application server, all the Tableau servers, they will try to automatically restart within a couple of seconds by their own. It will be keep restarting that specific servers in case even if it's a down. But sometimes you may see the false warnings here. It may be showing down. But as I said, the reliable source is from the command prompt. You go ahead and check it. So the background process, right? So again, one of the main thing. Again, so where does the background process come? So mainly for extract refreshes, subscriptions, even the the data flow right on the Tableau prep. If you have any data driven alerts, or even if you say run now if you're going to go ahead and run any of the jobs right now, or even your active directory synchronization that happens on a daily night, right? All those things will be taken care by the actual background jobs. So background jobs will create an extract and then here. Again, same thing, whenever the background jobs goes on or something, they will automatically restart as long as your computer is there. So we don't have it specifically, can I go ahead and kill that backgrounder process? No, there is nothing that you can do it here. Or though even you can see some backgrounder journey, you should never do like this. Okay, don't do like this. So that is not a recommended way. So the best practice for if any of the services is not running is you go to the first check for the TSM status, if it's running or not, and then you do the TSM stop, let all the services done, and then do a TSM restart or a TSM start. Get the outage and look for it. First, look for what is down. We'll talk about it. The more of the troubleshooting purpose of the multiple scenarios. What happens if it's down, or how do I know what is down and what not? But again, for your understanding purpose, as you know, right? So the backgrounder process need lot of CPU and memory. They are kind of intensive again. So the Tableau architecture recommends, have an isolated node for a backgrounder. Run only the backgrounders. So you can have, say if you're running on a multi-server, let's say if you have a 3-node architecture, and you have a large number of data has to be pulled into the Tableau, right? And they're going to take longer time. And I don't want, my user experience to be in with this one. So in 3-node architecture, what I'll do, so 1, 2, and 3, I will run only the backgrounder process on this third node. Let's say how many backgrounders you can run. Tableau depends upon your usage and everything. A simple rule what we could follow, at least in the beginning, is n-1. So if your third node is an 8-core architecture, if you have a decent the data extract, not heavy extract, then you can go for 7 backgrounders, or maybe you can start with maybe 5 backgrounders, n-2, something like that, n-3. We'll talk about this little bit of architecture also, but nothing you can do it here. So it's all about any of the running extracts, subscriptions, REST APIs, all the tabcmd command that you do, right? Tabcmd also basically same thing. You use the tabcmd command, right, to run the extract jobs. Anything that you do, end of the day, any extracts, however the way you want, you will initiate. You initiate to REST API, or you simply go to that specific job and say run now, or you schedule it. Everything will be part of the background process. So cache, you already know. Cache server is basically how do you define cache? I mean, if you want to evaluate nothing. Same thing again. What happens? So we'll continue to perform. Basically, whenever the cache server is closed down, this will still be working. But just that the data is not available in the cache, and then it has to the actual sources every time. So you can see cache server does not have an availability impact, which means your server will be still up and running, but just that you have to stick to the databases every time. I think recently Tableau recommended not to have more than 6 cache servers irrespective of your architecture. Even if you have a 5-node architecture, 10-node architecture, said you do not require more than 6, but we'll see that how your current architecture, and we can talk about that. So the client file service, again, this is the one which has recently been introduced, I think in 2019 or 2018. It wasn't there before. So this is basically, as itself says, client file services. So any of the files, maybe all the related files, like if you have the HTTPS, SAML authentication, if you have the HANA, mutual, everything. So all the certificates basically, they will be managed by the CFS service. This is basically an individual services we are talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So external SSL means your HTTPS. Again, everything basically, I said, every process will restart itself to make sure things are fine. And even you can see if you have your own specific logo, header, everything, right? Everything will be managed by basically all the files that you use will be managed. I mean, the most of these certifications and the customization files will be managed by the client file service. Again, we don't take any specific action as such in case if a specific process is down. So that's, remember one thing, right? Whenever any of the process is down, we don't take action for any individual process for that matter.
Okay.
We don't stop a specific process. We don't start anything as such. So this is the one which I was talking about.
Stops together and starts together. That's what you say, right?
So the coordination service I was talking about in the first one. So this is built using an Apache. So this is basically an open source project, and this is the one which is very important one, which will coordinate the activities on the server for overall one. Now you can see it will maintain that from the forum, right? In the event of the failure, if you have a three-node architecture, it will make sure the system is high availability and also configurations, topologies, everything. The coordination service, you could see it here. So this will only be one coordination service in the beginning, but you can have only one, and there will be.
You can only see it on in the TSF command, in the coordination service. That's the only way.
Yeah, only on the.
I read something like that.
Correct. Only on the TSM. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You can only see it on this page.
Yeah, TSM. I mean, on the TSM, that's why. I mean, here you could see everything for sure. You can see here. There will be one coordination service running on each node. So the coordination service, if you have a three-node architecture during your installation, it will not be shown. It will be by default installed on the first node, first coordination service, and then you have to manually install that. You have to configure it on the 2 and 3 nodes. Now, how many coordination services I need and how many, that we'll look into it when we go to the next one. But coordination service is the responsible for coordinating all the activities that includes the configuration and the topology, and that will be monitored by which one? By the agent. Agent will monitor the coordination service. So data engine, so name itself talks about it, data and then the engine. So whenever the backgrounder, we talk about the backgrounder, right? You go ahead and run the backgrounder, pulling an extract of let's say 10 GB or maybe let's say 2 GB of data, where the data is getting stored. That will be stored in the data extract. Here we have, an hyper one, right? Hyper for data extract formats. So hyper is the powerful data engine in Tableau Server. Initially, it used to be a .TDE we used to call. I think even now we have tools, other third-party tools till today. Sometimes they use .TDE format, Tableau data extracts. And then from 10.5 version later, Tableau came up with they are using a node called a .hyper. Hyper they used to call it 5 times much faster in terms of data processing. This is basically mainly for the large extract. So whenever you have a large extract, you want to pull the data from big data and whatnot, they're saying this will be much helpful for the hyper. And all this has been managed by the data engine. Tableau does stop everything. So data engine is used when creating, refreshing, or querying the extract. So this is a slight different, right? So this comes into picture when creating an extract, but actual extract, refreshing or querying the extract. Okay, the background job will initiate, and then this will be refreshing an extract, and then all the querying an extract. So memory, again, all available CPU on the machine for the faster response time. We'll look into this one. So sometimes, there will be a one data engine process wherever you have, the application server or a backgrounder process and whatnot. The data server. So data server basically comes into picture for the data connections. So data server, don't get confused with data server with the data engine. The moment you heard the engine, this is for creating, refreshing, and querying the extract. Where is the extracts? Extracts will be stored into the data engine folder. Today you go to your Tableau server folder, right? Here I have installed somewhere else. Tableau server, and then there isn't anything here. Data, nothing here. Data tab is busy. We usually don't use C drive at all. I don't like to use C drive. But on your machine, right, if you go to today, and if you do the right click onto this data engine folder, which would be here, Tableau server data tab SPC. Don't go to logs, but in the tab SPC there will be a data engine folder, and if your entire backup size is let's say 100 GB, almost 80 GB or 70 GB will be because of your extract. So all the extracts will be stored into your data engine folder itself. That is why it is used to refresh, creating, or querying extracts. So data server comes into picture. So whenever you need for any of the data sources. Again, so connecting to the Tableau server data sources for a certified data sources. You can see Tableau server is not dependent on data server to function. However, without running a Tableau, running data server, workbooks on the server lose the ability to query or to connect to the published data source. This is something important, which basically means if you have an embedded data sources, then it will continue to work, but it needs during the published data source. Again, we don't specifically go into any of these things, so we'll make sure my data server is up and running.
So
Usually,
regarding
I don't.
the data server is down, the
Yeah,
workbooks will not be refreshed, right?
on the published data sources.
The ones that are embedded to published data sources, they won't
Right.
have fresh data or fresh information.
Right. This is a data engine. So for creating and extracting, this is the file store is where you will again, control the storage of an extract, right? So when file store is installed, an instance of the data engine is also installed. As I said, everything goes in hand, right? It's not just a single process will have it. So it controls the storage of extracts. There it will creating, extracting. This one is creating, refreshing, or querying the extract. Now, file store basically used for an high availability. If you have a 3-node architecture and my first server is down, obviously you cannot open the one. Then what it does, I will go ahead and replicate into 2 and 3, depends upon my architecture. Then if we cannot pick it from here, I go ahead and pick it from here. So that's when this high availability comes into picture. You can see in high availability environments, the file store ensures the extracts are synchronized to other file store nodes also. That is why whenever you have more than one node, there will be, this file store will be keep spinning up on the other node. Sometimes if they are not synced, if you just click on it, it will show one file is set to sync, 2 files is set to sync. Both will be in sync and we don't lose the data even if any of the process goes down. Alright, so we'll stop it here for today. File store basically keeps the replica on the multiple nodes, all related to the files. So one can keep it as an advantage. We just did, recently. So whenever you have a huge amount of data, right? Let's say you have maybe 1 GB or 500 GB of your backup size, and your architecture is, your file store is not on the primary, then it will take much longer than the usual. So usual recommendation depends upon your outage details and whatnot. You can see here, the Tableau backup is much faster when an instance of the file store is located on the same node. So the reason of this one, right, it doesn't have to do, so Tableau internally does, even if your overall data size is around 800 GB, it does the compression technique. So basically it has to do all kind of the compression, and it will finally have to move it to the initial node or the first node or a first machine. So during that process, when you have the file store on the primary or on the initial node, that would take at least 20 to 25% of the time lesser than the overall. But yes, on a single node, everything will be single node, so there won't be any changes. If you have like you said, you have a sync. If you go ahead and today if you look into your architecture, you can just find out if you have 6 node or a 5 node, where is your file store. But yeah, how do we move to the file store in case if it's not in my primary? That we'll check later on. So there's a process that we have to follow. Okay, so these are all small one, the microservices. So this is all, you can see they are all, by default, one instance of the interactive, the microservice container is added to every node. There will be only one usually, so we don't check that out. We don't increase it also. And what actual microservices, we don't we don't worry much about it because it's all about internal to the Tableau server communication among the services. So there isn't anything specifically we would do when this is not at least frozen or something. Again, you can say, right, so you cannot see the status of any individual microservices within a container process. So as long as in the container process it's active green check, that means all are working fine. Again, the major one is the repository, right, where it stores it's your database. So what is my repository database? That's the Postgres database. Correct, the PostgreSQL. Today, if somebody asks about any of the stats, like how many users I have in my entire platform, or how many workbooks I have, how many data sources, or how often the refresh are getting stored and whatnot, every information is being stored in the PostgreSQL of this repository. So this is the database, right? For instance, every tool for that matter, not just Tableau, it needs the repository to store the metadata as well as the data. You can say it includes all the information from the Tableau server, users, groups, group assignments, permissions, project, data sources, etc. Everything. So basically, whenever we are even able to authenticate or open some workbook, download it, anything, that's all taken care from this repository. So there will be max of two repositories you can have. Okay, one is called active repository and one is the passive repository. In irrespective of how big or how small your architecture, if it's single node, then everything will be only one node. We'll come back to the search and service define. We'll dissolve the SAML in case if we have a SAML authentication mechanism. TSM maintenance services. So VizQL service again one more, which we often encounter. So for all the VizQL, rendering the visualizations, everything, this is one of the major process. Again, the VizQL server is a very high intensive CPU and memory one. So whenever you have a multi-node architecture, Tableau recommends isolate the VizQL server from the backgrounder.
So you isolate them from the rest of the cluster and put them in a single node, or
no. If you have two nodes, this is node 1, you have node 2, node 3, then you can have VizQL server on node 1, node 2, put the backgrounder on node 3. So there won't be anything here. Yeah, everything should be within a cluster, but I'm isolating from that specific node. Okay, why do I need to do it? Because these are quite intensive. So if you have same thing running, let's say you have a huge backgrounder extension keep running. So the resources, CPU, memory, right? Even that input, output, throughput, everything will be shared across all these services. So this is also keep running, and you have all the loads, heavy extracts, especially those business hours, and my application team, right, across the platform, they're also trying to open the workbook. Somebody's trying to download, somebody's trying to create an extract. So the rendering of the visualizations will be much slower when you have the other intensive process like the backgrounder is continuously running. That's like much, and we do the same actually. Tableau also says the moment you have, so do I need to do it every time? No, it's not that every time I do it. You look for, okay, how many background jobs are there in my entire platform and and what is the average time it's going to take. Assume that you have maybe, 100 jobs running, but all the 100 jobs, just takes maybe 5 minutes each on an average, maybe let's say 10 minutes. That's just fine. But in that case, okay, what do? First thumb rule is you push all the background jobs to the off business hours, right? That's the first thing. Whenever somebody asks, hey, what, I need to run it today morning, 9 a.m. No, 9 a.m. at least on your local time. That is something strict, right? Because everybody wants to log in and check their reports or maybe their, the daily reports and to take some actions. So I cannot have a backgrounder of running maybe let's say 30 minutes, 1 hour in the morning itself. So they get pissed off, okay, this report is not even loading, or my subscriptions are not coming up because subscriptions get delayed. Subscriptions are again based on they are all again the backgrounder jobs. So if your backgrounder is already busy, I have two instances of backgrounder here. You see this one and this one, 892.10.8120. And I already have a subscribed, the one other one, exactly same at 9 a.m. But this got initiated at 8:30 and that will take, let's say, 45 minutes. So it means till 9:15, these two background processes are busy. It cannot process the subscription. So your subscriptions will get delayed every day. That is because the backgrounders was so busy. But assuming that you have, you don't have so many backgrounders, or you don't have so much of data to put in, it's okay. And then, based on the deviation approval, right, it is okay to run it, but not at 9 a.m. in the morning. Can we run it maybe 12:30 in the afternoon, right? That's maybe a lunchtime. And again, you will ask for how many records are we going to push it, and did you try from your Tableau desktop? What is the time it took to load it? And then are you going to, and then do you have the flexibility of going with an incremental data refresh? I don't want full refresh every day, right? So we'll explore these options, and then you will be asking these options if that's possible. So just say most of the time incremental, may not work. But if they say, okay, I've already refreshed on my Tableau desktop and it takes 10 minutes, and based on the approval and everybody says fine, okay, it's just maybe a couple of jobs at 10 minutes, then you can go ahead and do it. But any other jobs after 6 p.m., right, or maybe 7 p.m. is fine. Mostly everything would be like 9 p.m., 10, 11, 12, whatever. So off business hours, irrespective of if you have an isolated node or not, That's like a best practice. But it again depends upon the amount of data and the number of extracts that you're running on the entire platform. So VizQL server and these two are very different things. Okay, so gateway is going just is a gateway. Now let's see how this flow actually works. So now we understand individual flow, but I just copied how that individual flow will look like when actually in the overall perspective. So if you see, this is the entire architecture which I've taken directly from the Tableau itself. So what it says, this is your client machine, just like our laptops or maybe Tableau desktop or maybe Tableau mobile or maybe a command prompt or API or whatever REST API, whatnot. Your request and the client. And what I'm asking is, so this followed by you have all the processes here. The first one is the gateway, and there are different processes that we talked about it, right? As application text and everything. So this is all about the Tableau process, which is equivalent to this one. The gateway, followed by this middle layer of all the different processes. And then you have to connect to the databases, what do we need? We need the drivers, like ODBC driver, or the Tableau provides like 60 plus data, all those things. And then if you're passing the information on the internet, with a secure network, then you need those SSL, right? That's the CPS and whatnot. So this is our portion. Now let's see how it works. So in case if you're using a local authentication, right? Assuming I'm not using Active Directory, I'm using only the local authentication. How does the flow looks like? So I'll be sending this document tonight, right? Just look for this screen. I couldn't, take it like it's a little blur because I want to take everything screenshot here. But you can, if you don't find out, okay, what is this? Just refer back to this one. So this is basically application server. But you can read here. How does the flow works in the local authentication? First thing, the client, let's say for example, I am the one, a request to access Tableau server is sent to the browser. So the client is sending the request to the browser. The gateway will receive the request and forward it to the application server. So this all will be done in fraction of nanoseconds, but for us to break down what will happen. So gateway will send the request back to the application server. This in the local authentication mechanism. Now application server will prompt the username and password. Because you're using a local authentication, you will not have that SSPI like an automatic one. Like exactly what we are doing right now today, right? So whenever I was trying to do, so what it happened is I am the client from my machine. I try to access. So I sent a request to the gateway. Gateway sent a request back to the gateway forward the request to application server. Application server is prompted with the username and password. Now what happens? So application server prompts the user for username and password and forward the results to the repository to verify. As I said, all the information will be shown in the repository. So now the moment if I go ahead and put my username and password here, say for instance anything, and then if I sign in, that request will be forwarded to the repository to verify if this username is there or not. So the repository will verify the credentials and then it will send back to the application server. The application server will register those details and it will start generating the web page for us. You can see here the application server registers the positive response and starts to generate the server interface if being accessed in a browser. At the same time, it also forwards the request back to the gateway. And then gateway receives the request and forward back to the client. So the client receives the response and displays the web interface. So in this case, what happens? So my repository was not able to identify this particular user is there. So it will send the response back to the application server. Application server tries to load the web page and then registers, but the authentication is failed. So it's not going to load any of the web page. The same information will be passed to the gateway, and gateway will in turn going to respond back to the client. And this information somewhere is being stored saying that invalid username and password. But in case if this works, so what happens this time? So repository is going to say yes, and then that information will be passed to application server. Application server starts loading the web page along with in parallel sending to the gateway back to the client. Alright, so most of things will remain same as the application server is the one which will be responsible for authentication authorization in the sense it is the one which does the registering the credential, right, after getting it from repository, and then it will communicate with the other processes. This is one of the reasons, why I didn't start with this one, but I started with architecture. So we'll have some better understanding of it. So in case if I'm not using local authentication, obviously we don't use local authentication most of the time unless it's a POC platform kind of thing. So how does it work with an authentication with an Active Directory? Same thing, I'm the client. I send a request to gateway. Gateway will forward the request to application server, right? So the application server will forward the request to the repository. So you can see the repository to verify that the user is valid and not there. Now the repository verify the username exists and gather appropriate permissions also. Then forward the request back to the application server. The actual permissions, workbooks, users, groups, everything is being stored in the repository in an encrypted way. It's not something like I can go ahead and see as is. It's not a physical location, right? So some amount of some the memory allocation and some kind of allocation is being there for all these on a separate chunk of blocks for users, for groups, and how it authenticates. What happens? So application server will register the information and forward the request to the gateway. So gateway receives the request. Now here is a little bit of different here, right? So here and authentication, local authentication is totally different. Almost same. But since we are using an Active Directory, so the actual users I have to check with an AD controller. There's something called as an AD Active Directory controller. That is when it comes into picture. You can see here the gateway receives the request and forward it after the user has been receives from here. Then it forward the request to the Active Directory controller. So it will verify the username here, but you can see on the 7th point the AD controller verifies the password and passes the response back to the gateway. So and then this will receive the request and passes to the application server again. It registers the password. That's why I said application server is responsible for authentication, which means this is the one which handle. First time it will send it to repository, get the username, put it back here, send to gateway. Gateway will send it the details to AD controller to get the password. Again, put it gateway will pass it back to again application server. You can see on the step number 9, the application server register the password response will start to generate the user interface. Then forward the request back to the gateway. Now gateway receives the request and pass it back to the client. So the client will respond. The web interface will start opening. That means if you just open a workbook, obviously I don't know whether I have the edit permissions, whether I can only view the report, do I have an interactive role and whatnot. That will be taken care on this repository. You can see it here on the both. The repository verifies that the username exists, but the password is not stored here. Where is the password stored? The password is stored in the Active Directory controller. If everything works fine, how does it is loading with an interactive license? How does it working only with the viewer license, right? Viewer site role and whatnot. That information is stored in the repository. Fourth point. It is not just a workbooks, data sources. It's along with users workbooks permissions also. So application server will receive the response from the repository if that username exists along with the permissions, which means you have to remember Active Directory does not do what an application specific permissions, right? We don't do it here. It is just for authentication purpose. Authorization will be taken care by the Tableau repository. Authentication done by Active Directory, authorization will be taken care by the Tableau repository. So this is again, since we are using, I think it's going to be the same thing. In case assume that you are using maybe a SAML identity data provider, which means the authentication has to happen outside the Active Directory, like a third-party tool. Then what happens? I will make sure nobody here again. Authorization will be taken care by here, but I will not going to authenticate anything. So authentication will be taken care by my third-party tool because the username and password is stored in the here. So instead of this, it's going to be here. Same with maybe even the Kerberos also, because all the users has been exported. That is where we'll be having the certificates and whatnot. We'll discuss that later. But yes, all the authentication will be done by outside, but that response will be registered into the application. So assume that, right, a simple case scenario. So somebody say, hey, you know what? I'm not able to access. Right? Usually, whenever people say I'm not able to access, I try to open this link. They assume some of the users assume that if they are able to, they'll assume that whenever somebody shares any of the report or the URL, that should open as is, irrespective of, they don't have to worry, or, they don't worry that, okay, I need to have an access to this specific application, whatnot. So first thing what we do, we go ahead and make sure this, okay, this is how we receive the request, right? They'll say one big URL, maybe, one of the workbook URL. Hey, I'm not able to open this URL. It says some error, or it says sometimes, directly incorrect username and password, or the username doesn't exist. The first thing is what? We make sure that specific user is part of the Tableau server or not. So first thing is we'll ask, okay, what site are you looking for, right? Which site? Or if the URL already has an access, everything that says, then we'll, as server admin, we will go into the specific site to look for all the users. Let's say, for example, here. Now let's say, how do I know? Okay, we have only one site. That's why I'm in the home button. If somebody says, let's say you are the one, right? You say, hey, I cannot access. But if you say, what I do, I go ahead and do, let's say I have some 10,000 users. What I do, I enable this. I'll put Umar. Umar is there or not there on this specific site. This is the default site called the default, right? We'll look into this in depth, but I'm saying, let's say you don't have an access, then you need to work with your site administrator who is responsible for the content management. But again, we talk about it. If it's a single node and if it's a small organization, both the server and site admin will be same. But yes, there's a differentiate between site and the server. On the UI, when we come there, we'll do it. So let's not worry about that. But yes, I'm just still talking more on. Yeah, that's where I was just trying to at least give the overall perspective, so that even if you have any questions and if you could think to something, we'll again discuss that. So this is same thing. So authentication is done. Now, how do you even access a view or something, right? Now I'll send the URL. You go ahead and open it, and it does open. So here we are trying to access a view from a cache server, from the cache, which means somebody has already accessed it, and then you are also trying to open the same thing. So if you see again this link, same thing. But let's see. There's a little here. So whenever you hear the word rendering a view, accessing a view, which means what? The VizQL server comes into picture. Tableau has it's all about what? VizQL query or a VizQL visualization query. All the raw data is converting into the VizQL based on this query engine, VizQL server. Same thing, the gateway receives the request from the client. Gateway will send the request to the, now let's see what happens here. There are two things that happen. Things simultaneously here. So gateway receive the request and forward it to the application server. The application server completes the authentication. So this time, what happens when I say completes authentication again, we have already assumed it. We know how do we connect with Active Directory or your local authentication. So I cannot have each and every step. That's how they script it here. So application server already authenticated by connecting to repository, and then if you say Active Directory, putting into go to edit directory, get the password, and then. So that's all done. That's how you have to assume it. Right? So application server completes authentication means what? It sends a request to the repository. Hey, you go and verify if the username verifies is there or not. It's a repository, yes, username is verified. Register. This gateway will again send that to Active Directory controller. Get me the password. Get the password. Push it to application server, and then application server will register, and it will render the view along with sending the request back to gateway and client. So this time it's going to be the same thing. So application server verifies that the completes authentication and starts rendering the view. So rendering VizQL client, a GET request will be sent to the workbook. Obviously, which one do you want to use? So internally they use all the APIs, right? All the REST APIs. So go ahead and GET request for the workbook is sent to the VizQL server. So this VizQL server again, which workbook I have to open? Obviously, it has to look for all the workbooks stored in the repository. GET command will be initiated. So VizQL server queries the repository to validate user permissions to, again, the permission has to be verified this time. Authentication is done, but the permission also we need. The VizQL server queries the repository to validate user permission to view the request, the .twd file. So the permissions will be verified here. The repository sends the result of the query back to the VizQL server as well as the .twd file necessary to create a view. And then it checks some cache, right? First it checks here, and then the VizQL server will also check into the cache server if that space, if the same report is already there or not, that same TWD file. The cache server retrieves the cached query from the external query. Okay, this is a very big topic. Okay, there are two different kinds of caches. And till today, nobody has understood very much detail, so we don't have to worry. But what you need to just look for it, there'll be something called as an internal cache and an external cache. So something is specific to the. We'll talk about that when I get there. So that's very confusing one. But for now, just remember there are two different kind of cache. One is called internal cache, and the other one is an external cache, right? So again, these are all internal mechanism we're talking about. If you see the step number 7, the cache server retrieves the cached query, right? That means somebody has already accessed the query and it's a similar query, so it'll or out the same query that will be stored into some other external query cache. Within a cache, there will be internal and external. That external query will be cached from there, and it renders the view and delivers to the gateway. So gateway sends a response back to it, and then here for you, in order to simply understand is application server already does authentication. Next, obviously, I have to open a view. Now the VizQL server will come into picture whenever you talk about the rendering. That VizQL server will go and get the request from the repository along with the permissions to view it or to interactive and whatnot. That permission, and then once that you get, it doesn't open directly. It also checks do the same query is available in the cache or not. And then cache server internally will check where do I have that actual query. So I may be assuming some locations like internal and external query caches. If it's there, it will load from the cache server. First time you open it, you take some, maybe a couple of seconds extra. Second time you open it, it will get it from the cache server. As I said, we don't go like a step exactly as it, but it kind of a pictorial representation. You can also keep in mind whenever you are working with, the Tableau, or whenever people say, hey, this cache or it's not working or something. So you can have this picture. How does it work? The VizQL server will always look for cache first time. If that's not there, then the request will be sent back to the actual database. Same thing here, right? So this is basically similar one, accessing a view, right? Accessing an embedded extract view, which means I went and published a workbook which has an embedded credential and embedded extract basically. I have the next one called accessing a view, which is a live connection. Basically, I published a workbook with a live connection or with an extracted data. How does it work? So the moment whenever you hear the word data extract, means okay, what comes into picture? Data engine comes into picture. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because data engine is responsible for creating and querying the extract also. Querying the extract and creating. So the moment you say extract is already there, that means data engine. And then you can see rest all is same. If you look at the diagram, everything is same. Instead of cache server, since it's an extract, this time I'm going to query from here. So application server completes the authentication and starts rendering say Chrome or whatever the browser that we are using. It will get the request. Now VizQL server queries the repository for the appropriate user along with the permissions. So it will send the result back to the VizQL query as well as the TWB file. Server requests the data need. Now this time what happens? It will send back to it here. Instead of loading the query from here, VizQL server again has to contact the data engine because you already have the data. That's how you see VizQL server requests the data needed from the data engine. Now the data is not directly loading from the database because it's an extract. So that extract is being stored into the data engine. That is why I said yesterday, right? If you go to the today, any of your folder like the actual path, wherever you installed, and then if you go to the Tableau Server Data tab, this we see, there will be a folder called as the data engine. This is the place where all the extracts will be stored. And then if you open it, right, there will be any number of things like some naming convention like 20, 30, 10, 40, 50, 60. So each of them are one box. So if you right click on this data engine folder and if you see the properties, this will like huge 90% of this data is placed on here on your extracts. So all the data extracts are stored in the data engine. So you can see the data engine connects to the hardware, actual hard drive, and pulls extract from the data engine folder. So which will be from here inside it. Now what happens? So VizQL server queries the data engine passes interpret data to the VizQL server. It will ask request and back to it. And the rest also VizQL server renders the view and delivers it. And rest is same. It will pass it to gateway pass it to the. Alright, so same thing here. Say extract means the data engine. Let's see if not data, if it's a live connection, what happens? So rest all will remain same, I believe. only the repository you can see directly. My source. So rest all same. Instead of pulling from data engine, now I have to connect to my actual sources, live connection. And then how do I connect with the live connection? Through my database drivers or the data connections. You can see VizQL server connects to the repository, sends the result of the query back to VizQL server as well as the database file. VizQL query connects to the data connection. Data connections are used to access the data sources, all the the intermediate layer. So once it's connected, now data from the database is passed to the VizQL. Database data will pass to the VizQL, and the VizQL it will render the view and show it. Same thing on the live connection, which means you're connecting live data to the database, and Tableau can connect to your database via this database connections or the native drivers that we are accessing a view using an external file.
On the live data connection, as soon as the data changes, is Tableau application, is it going to pick it up right away, or?
Yes, but you have to refresh the browser. It's not that I'll keep my browser as is, and it's not like you're watching a live match and your your web browser refreshes or no, it doesn't refresh on its own, right? But if you see in the any of the matches that we view on live, that will refresh the web browser because that's how they have been set up. But we have to refresh the screen, refresh the web browser.
Yeah, I understand. What I meant, my question was like, what I meant was like, when you open a new workbook, it will go and pick up the current data, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But for performance purposes, which one is better? I mean, which one is better for the health of the application?
So if it's still live and followed by extract. See, it's quite simple, right? We go with the live connection. First thing, the business criticality is very, very important. And assume if they say there are somebody is going to update or let's say some prescription or maybe some updates is very, very important, but they are not so big. It's not a huge amount of data. It's basically some kind of updates are happening, and I wanted to see those comments. I have hardly couple hundreds of records or maybe thousands records. Then yes, we go with the live connection because it's not a too big. But assume if they say it's like a Facebook or LinkedIn or Google, where every second or every minute, right, you get some, let's say 1+ million records. Even for that matter, let's say every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, you have maybe 1 minute, maybe let's say the 1 million records. Then your dashboard won't even load. Depends upon your architecture, right? Because I need to get that 1 million live data. How do I get the 1 million live data? The moment you refresh the workbook, the 1 million records will take at least, depends upon architecture and depends upon the resources that we have, right? How much CPU, how much RAM that you have, and also assume that it's a shared platform where where the multiple application teams are using. So everybody is going to share the same resources, the CPU memory and the disk space or input output throughputs, right? It also depends upon where your database is located and how you're bringing the data on the data on the data servers. So those factors will come into picture, and it will be keep loading for that matter. So they will not go. Yeah. So in short, live connection is not the preferred when you have a huge amount of data. That will be keep refreshing data. That is why we go for an extract. Extract means obviously like a daily, maybe daily refreshes or if again business criticality is like no, every 2 hours I need. That's how my requirement is. And I told you guys, before I come into the Tableau, because I thought, Tableau will have, somebody said it's like like near real-time data. See the business criticality, how big is the application, how much they are contributing at the end of the day to the Tableau also, right? And then based on that, we can have maybe a 10 minutes or 15. I think Tableau has as small as 5 minutes refresh. They can go ahead and have 15 minutes refresh if that's the business criticality. But again, you have to weigh it across, how much data they're going to bring in every 10 minutes, and do I have an isolated background or nodes or whatnot, or does it going to have any performance impact for rendering the visualizations during my business hours? In short, most of the times, any of the data, the moment they say, hey, I need, they will only say, because the data doesn't come directly from a fact file or anything, right? Even if it has to come from a fact file, the actual source data has to be entered, and that has to go through certain phases, like the ETL jobs will be keep running, and then finally the Tableau is used for the data visualization. That's how they prefer. Okay, I have my jobs running every day by 9 p.m. Our data will be done, right? That day data will be getting stored by 9, will be delivered by 9 p.m. So can I have it scheduled by 10 p.m. Tableau, so that the Tableau can pick up that week, that's the daily data. Certain the monitoring alerts or certain web alerts if they want the live connection. That's how they can go for the live. So basically, whenever you have a small data set, the live works fine. You don't have to worry. But if you have a huge amount of data and if you still go for a live, and when you refresh, you see a lag, some amount of lag that the data won't appear, but you don't have you have to be a little bit patient enough because it's still processing maybe. Okay, it is not like the moment you simply click on refresh, all the 500k records will come into. No, right? How does all the 500k records come into picture? But because okay, what it's doing is, what it doing internally, if you look at the architecture, it has to connect. Tableau will have to connect from VizQL server to the data connections, go to the external sources and show me the data. That this part, right? This part. If your actual data center of your database is somewhere else, through this data connection and even the throughput, right? How many records I can pass from my data servers to the Tableau. And again, depends upon what kind of connections are you using. If you're using a direct native connectors and certain connection other parameters, and depends upon the number of records, this will take a couple of seconds, or depends upon the amount of data. So it's not that the moment you click on refresh, I should see all my 500k records. No. If it's only a 10 records, 15 records, or maybe 100 records, it will show immediately. But not if you have thousands of records, it will be like keep processing, keep loading it. So this is same thing. So one is live, one is an extract, one is if in case if you have somewhere on the external files. So that's the same thing again. So whenever you have to receive the necessary data, external files again are stored in the repository itself. You can see it will directly receive from the repository. One from cache, one from data engine, one from directly here, or from the external sources. So we'll look into this one. So in case this is all about accessing a view, how about you wanted to access the any of the published extracts and what basically the data source should come into picture. I'm trying to access the published data source, which is an extract, or I'm trying to access the published data source, which is a live connection. So what happens? Again, this all remains same. Client, application server, first make sure this person has whatnot. So here, the repository sends the result of the query back to VizQL server as well as a TWB file, which I'm looking for. So the VizQL server sends a query to the data server to retrieve the necessary data, which routes it to the gateway. The VizQL server again will trying to access the published extract data source. So this will connect back to the data server. So data server acts as a proxy to access the published extract and send the query to the data engine. So since we are talking about two different things here, one is the published data source, second one we are talking about an extract. The moment you say extract, the data engine should come into picture. The moment you talk about a data source, the data server come into picture. So the data server not directly connecting to the external sources, it will connect to here on a live connection. I should have that next one, or maybe I'm not rendered. Yeah, you see it here instead of here the live. Extract means data engine. But since we are talking about accessing the published data source, the moment you hear the data source, the data server comes into picture. That's how the step 8 data server acts as a proxy in between. It's like a middle layer to access the published extract and send the query back. To access the published extract and send the query to the data engine. This one. So VizQL server will not directly connect to the data engine because it's an extract, not a workbook, but it's an published data source. So instead of sending directly from here, it acts like a proxy. The request goes via the data server and then from here. To know which data server it has to send the request, I might have 6 data sources. Then how do I know which one? So we will be here. But in terms of accessing a workbook, it will directly get it from here, extract data. But for the sources, you go through this proxy. Now data engine connects to the hard drive, right? Actual sources wherever you have an extract and put the data. So it's passed to the data server for interpretation, which means pass it to the VizQL server. So it goes from here to here, would send back from here to here. And then this will render the view, and along with it will pass the information back to the data client. Same thing goes with the live. This time what happens, so this guy will send the request to the data server. This will act like a proxy to the access to the data source and send the query to the data connections. So the data connections are used to access the data sources. Data from the database is passed to the data server. Data from the database passed to the data server for interpretation is passed to the VizQL server. It will render the view and deliver the view to the gateway. The gateway will pass the push back. Okay. So most of the times, now what is not there in this one is whenever you go and schedule a backgrounder, this one comes into picture.
Can you repeat the last thing you said?
If you see, right, most of the times I'm looking into the screen. Now you should be familiar with this one. You will understand how the gateway works. Application server, VizQL server, cache. Search and browse is only for the search and browse. Don't worry about it. There's nothing much here than searching and browsing. Like the way I'm trying to search a project, or I have, all this. That's a simple one. But the backgrounder is something we didn't see. But data server when to come into picture, data engine. The file store is basically for the replica of data, and repository is the major ones. This is mainly for the Tableau. If you have the Tableau workflows, Tableau for builder, then you can use it. So in this workflow, the only thing that is not there is the backgrounder one. So far we didn't see the backgrounder. But again, that backgrounder also, whenever you initiate the backgrounder job, that comes into picture. Actually, all of this information I just copied. I didn't do anything much here. If you go to this one, right, this link has everything. I just put it for discussion purpose so we can have each line. This is actually been copied as part of the Tableau public. So we cannot, they don't have an option to download the workbook, but you have in detail actually more than what we have. So if you see, right, how you want to authenticate with the local authentication active directory, you want to access a view, publish a workbook, publish a data source and whatnot. Let's say I wanted to refresh and extract workbook or a flow, right? That's what I wanted to do it. And then refresh the extract. Just like you said, right? I have an 9 a.m. extract and then I want to refresh. And then you go to step 3, just put it back, everything here. It will show what is going to happen. See, whenever you're refreshing an extract, right? The moment you hear the word refresh the extract workbook or flow, this is already been set up on the server. That is why these none of things are showing up here. So the backgrounder queries the backgrounder job table in the repository, right? This backgrounder, it queries the repository, which workbook or which data source do you want me to refresh. Again, the word if you hear the extract, which means what? It's a data engine. Obviously, data engine also to connect to the actual data sources, right? For refresh. That's what happens. So repository returns information on the schedules needed to run. Still depends upon the availability, and available backgrounder picks up the refresh extract task and sets the progress. It verifies the connection and uses the embedded credentials to the connection. It uses an embedded credential. That is why we did not even go to this application authentication and whatnot. Because we are saying refreshing an extract. Extract means what? The schedules has already been embedded. If it's a live connection, we are already seeing the same thing. So you can look for these options, right? Accessing a workbook, you'll also say stop publishing. So this is one thing that was not there, so you can just look here. The moment you say extract, it's all in the data engine, and then you're trying to refresh. Refresh means what? Somebody has to take care of the backgrounder, so the backgrounder will come in picture. Yeah, so this is all for my learning purpose.
You can visualize what happens in that one.
Yeah. So this gives me some confidence in tomorrow. So if I remember this pictorials, right, what is happening. So now this is all looks simple here. Gateway, Viz portal, VizQL server, and then the data engine, backgrounder jobs. So this is little bit on Elasticsearch will compare it, and then the actual storage repository, the actual flows, like so we understand like individual process. So these are the main process. So there'll be other things like I said yesterday, the coordination service will be taken care by the zookeeper. there will be a one cluster controller, some of the microservices, and then the administration agent and controller are responsible for the coordination, something. So you don't have to worry each and every service has it, but the major ones are the one that is being shown up on this your administration page. We should know tomorrow. Yes, yeah. So what it does individually. So with that, we have completed the architecture of the Tableau server, I would say. So, and then I put one more user called tab-pp is basically a publisher. Okay, so we have your publisher interactor. You can add even one Tableau hyphen an administrator. So I'll say small team. So it's going to be same. So why did I put? So that you understand exactly how the actual permission looks like and how do we take it from there, right? Now I logged into the machine. I went and installed the Tableau desktop also yesterday to make sure how do we publish, right? Things from a developer. Now, how do the developer publish this and where do we publish this, and how does that Tableau piece works? Just to have the integration between the Tableau desktop, we look and see, how does it actually work? So this is my server. So what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to load the page. It didn't come up. So first thing is that should come to your mind is when the page doesn't load, check whether this service is up or not. It says services are degraded. Maybe it was taking time to load. Let's do one more time. Every time you basically use only one command at the TSM is degraded. Let's see TSM status -v, right? So what service is not applicable or why it's degraded mode? Most of things is running. Okay, VizQL server is in a state. And one is okay, the application server is the state. Okay, so basically I think the system is not up and running. In that case, what you can do, you can go to services page and just click one more time. Or we'll log into the TSM again. Because the server was completely stopped mode, right? We started. It was like you shut down the machine and you started. The moment you shut down, obviously all the services which are running within this machine will shut down. That includes the Tableau also. Right, so this is the Tableau desktop I've installed because we have 2019.1. So I installed the similar version, right? I installed 2018.3 because the compatibility should be there, right? You cannot have a Tableau server less version than your Tableau desktop. Because if your Tableau desktop is more version, then you cannot publish to your lower version to your server. So your server can be an higher version, but the best practices, all the organization practices, both server and your desktop are exact matches, and even the Tableau makes sure it will release both the products. If you have 2.3, Tableau will release 2018.3.2, 2018.3.2 Tableau desktop, and 3.2 Tableau server as well. So make sure your Tableau desktop and your Tableau server are in sync. We have a sample workbooks which will be installed as part of the, when you install Tableau desktop. I'm simply trying to open it. I'm trying to, let's say, if I already have a Tableau server, so it basically says where do you want to document, right? I've actually entered, the temporary license that I had, which I may not be able to use it, but this I just use for right now. Alright. Okay, so I entered this one. So we are on the TSM page 8850. You can see your Tableau server is in the degraded mode. As I said, TSM means Tableau Services Manager. Any of the services, whenever goes down, you can see red. Now I can quickly go back because you can take it as the troubleshooting step. Whatever you see, I'll be looking at the same thing on my command prompt. Right now, whatever you see here, right, the TSM status is degraded mode. And it says if you apply some changes, it's going to make it. Okay. Now, for now, we don't have to do anything. Let it be like a default on whatever it came up. I'll simply go ahead and restart the Tableau server, right? Because we have applied some valid license on this class, that should be okay. This is, do you want it? It will take some time for all the services to get restarted. And now you can see all the services are getting restarted. we already have an account called admin account. This is the administration account, which has been created as part of the installation, the last step, right? After installation completes, we need to create an administration account. So this is the administration account is admin, and then whatever the password. This will not log in immediately because our TSM is, our services are still getting run. Okay, you can check. If I minimize it, it will take some time. So you can see server is stopping mode. You will not be able to log in immediately. You can see it's signing in, but it's keep loading it. So we'll be discussing, after maybe maybe tomorrow's class. Remember, TSM is services. The moment you hear the word TSM, TS means services. You want to stop service, you wanted to change any of this one to more than one or anything, or any of the configurations, all things you will do on the TSM. Either you can do through command prompt or 80% of the things you can do directly from UI. But some configurations, if you wanted to do, they are specific to an approach, specific to your configuration, specific to your instance, that you have to do through the TSM command prompt. And this is the UI which we, the server administrators, as well as the site administrator, as well as the users will be using on a daily basis to access the dashboards, to access the reports. Now, switching back to Tableau desktop, right? I'm the developer. Now I'm trying to, okay, I think this has already been published. That's why it's trying to say, opening from the server. Actually, if you see server, right? This is my Tableau desktop, right? I'm just trying to open the workbook, assuming that I'm the developer for this workbook. I'm on Tableau desktop. How do I go to, okay, what kind of access I have, right? And how do I publish the server, and how does it look like? So I'll be using these accounts, right? And how does it works? Yeah, see, this is how it works, right? If your desktop is 2018 and if your server is 2019 version, it's fine because this is a lower version than this one. You can publish it. Okay, this is the other way. If you're using 2019, if you're using 2018, right? You cannot publish the dashboard to a higher version of server. You have to come to a lower version publish. Then how do I come to a lower version? Luckily, Tableau has given a version where you can go back, you can see file, and then export as a version. You click on this. From 10.2, they are giving an option. Now my Tableau server version is not 2018. I know it's 10.5, assuming. Then I have to publish it as a 10.5. The problem with this one is that means you're using 2018.3. If there are some features, if you've already been using in 2018.3, because your server is 10.5, those features will not be there. Same goes the other way around. Assume that you are using 2019. You can always open the higher version of the dashboards on your lower version of desktop. So one thumb rule is always, the server is higher is fine. But we don't want to fill a gap, and we don't want to have any kind of, the new features are compatible and whatnot. The best practice, and everybody follows in the organization, is both has to be exact match version. So desktop and server. And even that's how the Tableau also releases the products. So we make sure we package for our organization. Alright, so now this is the report. Assume that everything is ready. Now I'm the developer. I have to go ahead and publish the server. What I'll do, I'll go to server, and then I will sign into it, right? Obviously, which server do I need to sign in? Since everything is local, I have different local accounts I can create on my server. You cannot simply, now if I say, the moment you say server sign in, it will ask you for, okay, what is your URL? Right? So what is my URL? My URL is based on my DNS name. Everything is server. This is my URL. First, let's go and understand. Server restart failed. Operations failed to complete. Okay, I think there are some pending changes. going to check one more time on the command prompt. So whatever you do it here and whatever you do on the UI, both are same. Actually, it says Tableau server is running here. Let's see. Actually, Tableau server is running. Maybe we just restart it. Right. So I'll wait for this one. So once your server URL up, right? I'll be using this URL irrespective of for what project or something. This is my sign-in one. We need to have the right DNS name, like this thing. If you are using without, if you don't have a certificate, then it's going to be like this. So Tableau hyphen dev dot your organization name, like abc.com, and then your site name followed by, let's say, whatever. Let's say I have created some the marketing something like this. This is how the URL has been structured, and your developer will connect with will log into this URL on the Tableau desktop. We'll do the same thing in a moment once the service is fixed. So usually, the TSM restart or TSM stop and changes, right? For any of the configuration changes, depends upon your data and other factors. It might take at least 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, so that is why if the changes are not so immediately important, we take the downtime during the weekend, right? Friday late evening, and then we apply changes. If something important during Monday to Friday, go for minimum an hour, and then you do whatever the changes that needs to be done, and then you do it. Okay, so don't get unless you see that it's completely comes back, it says like the TSM is in the running mode. And only you'll be moving more. Alright, now we are good shape. I can see your Tableau server is running. Again, don't rely simply on the UI. Always rely on the command prompt. Go to TSM, and if you simply say status, if it's a running state, which means all the processes, whatever you see, are running. If you really wanted to see every process, just say TSM status -v. Alright, now you can see all the processes. So some of them will be stopped. We don't need all these things like a backup, restore stop, like import stop. This is not worry about it. These are I said, the major services will be running on. Now I'll switch back quickly to my actual Tableau server instance. You see it's already loaded, and it's loaded with my username or my content. If I go to simply my content, just to check whom I did login with. I am the server administrator. Okay, my username is Tableau Training. I already know the username and password. Yesterday, I went and created a project. That's why you see two different default. By default, whenever you will have the default site. Okay, there will be a difference between yesterday's screen to this screen. This is a 2019 version. That is why whatever you see, it's like this vertical. The horizontal bar. From 2020 version, whatever you see here, it will be on this vertical bar. Okay, Congo. So whenever you install the machine, whatever you see the screen, it will be like this vertical side on your left hand side. So just pay attention to that one, and rest all the same. So what I did, if you remember yesterday, we went and created a site. Similarly, I went and created a site already. All I did is just go to setting. Since I have to go to all sites. Basically, if I have multiple sites, I am the server admin. I simply went to settings and create a site. Where will I create a site here? Yeah, go to sites. If you already created one, so let's say we're going to create one more. Okay, so new site. So yesterday we learned about I have already created one sales for testing purpose. So I'm going to create marketing. Okay, this will be a site ID. As I said, we focus mainly on how the application team wants to start with. They want to start with 1 GB of data because they have 1 GB max. I'll keep the revision history fine so that I'll not be having a number of revision histories. And that user, there are only 10 users. Both server and site administrator can add up to 10 users of different site roles. Since I'm using some different license, right? I don't have the enable labeled access, which is fine. And rest all you can leave as is. right? Web editing and all those things, email setup if something goes wrong. Just email will just go ahead and create a site. Alright, so now we have a new site creator called marketing site. And then I said if you come back to all sites, right? You click on all sites, go to site, you will see what is what. Users, the marketing one already is a user because I am the one who can use it, that's why. Then the maximum users can be to a 10. Storage users right now I'm not using anything. The maximum storage is 1 GB. Based on my application team request, this is how we have been provisioned and we will be charging for the 10 users. And this is the site that we created in case as server administrator you wanted to, the monitor later on, etc. And these are the basic things that you want to, the web authoring disclaimer, you wanted to edit, you want to allow the web edits on the server, yes, mobiling, membership, etc. Now, if you go to marketing, inside marketing, you see I'm inside the marketing right now, which means whatever I do, it's a site specific, not server specific, okay? The moment you go to, the manage all sites, whatever you do here, if you add a user, that will be like in all the sites how you wanted to add. I don't want to do that. Let's learn one by one. I'll go to, the marketing. I'm inside a marketing, which means I'm inside the marketing application. I have some space for them. Now, if you go to click on users, there are no users, right? Now, this is the URL, right? You don't have to worry about site marketing, etc. It will log in based on this server URL. This is the format of the structural URL, site followed by site name. So our site is marketing and this is the actual one. So if I go to my Tableau desktop, if I put that URL right, it will be able to identify because everything is local. You don't have to worry about even this marketing and don't need to put that. It will simply identify, even put this much also. Let's put this much and try to sign in. Alright, so it's trying to access what is my username and password. If I simply put, let's say viewer, I'm the publisher, right? So because I wanted to publish this dashboard, if you put here, okay, and then my password, Tableau 123. You see that user was available in the sales department. That's why it's working on. I didn't say specifically marketing. So it's able to log into sales. You can see within the bracket sales. Because yesterday for testing purpose, I have added that user. If you go back and instead of manage marketing, go to manage all sites. If you click on users, that particular publisher, right, is tab underscore p. That is why it's able to log into that site. But I want specifically to marketing. Let's say we will use a complete site and then we will try to log into marketing again. Server, I have to log out from here, go to server and then sign out Tableau P and then I'll again server sign in. Let's see how does this works. Actually, the entire, it takes the platform wise, your user access. And before I say that, check and then I'll let you. So the user is able to log in from Tableau Desktop. From Tableau Desktop, right, it doesn't say much about what access you have at that high level. Because this person is available into a sales, that's why he's able to log into sales. But he doesn't have access into, the marketing. So what I can do, I don't want to add this user. I'll simply go to all the users which I've already created on the sales. Let's delete that user, right? Go to users, publisher one. I will delete this user. This is again one more thing to learn. So whenever you try to delete a user and if he is the owner of certain content, it says could not be deleted because they own a content. And what it will happen, it will make them to an unlicensed. If you go to, okay, what does this basically mean? If you go to content, yesterday I went and I created a project called regional sales like this, create a project. And then I published one workbook. If you see, open a regional, right? This is the workbook and he is the owner. because a user has some content, he'll not be able to delete that user, but we can make them unlicensed. When I say unlicensed, that means he will not be able to log into the machine. Now let's see if that is the case. We'll again sign out. We'll again sign in. This time the user role is unlicensed in the Tableau server. The tab icon P, then Tableau 1 2 3. You see, your account is not licensed. And then, okay, how do I know this account is really not licensed? You go to, usually how do I check? I don't check specific user because I'm the server admin. I simply go to manage all the sites. I go to users and then I take this advantage. If you have some thousands of users and then I put it here and then say Tableau, tab P, right? So I simply put tab hyphen P publisher and then I can see his site role is unlicensed right now. He cannot be able to log into the machine. Now what I can do to delete this user, I have to change because he owns some content, right? On the sales. So I will go to that particular workbook. I will change the owner of this workbook to my name. Because I am the server admin, I can do anything, but just learn how do we do it. Change the owner. Or change the owner to Tableau Training. Tableau Training is administration account. Okay, so once you change the owner of that specific content, now you go back to the user. On the sales, it's the publisher. Now now if he doesn't own any of the data in the server, now we will be able to remove that account. All right, now you can see P has been removed from the server. All right, now as I said, I'll go to marketing. We will learn one by one. By default, whenever you create a site, there will be a default project called as a default. Do not use it to publish to the default, right? We will be, because this default part can be used as a permission setup. We'll be learning in maybe next class. But every time whenever you create a site, see, because I did not create a project called default, right? A project basically means a folder. Now for our learning purpose, I'm going to create a project. This is already a marketing. So I'll say market sales project. Okay. Now this one. Market and sales. And if I go to users, right now no users are available for the marketing. Now what I'm going to add a user. What you usually see this thing is a new user from an active directory, but because we don't have an active directory, you simply say new user. I can create, so I'm going to create the same user again. This one, right? So because I need some publisher one who should be able to publish, tab hyphen P. I'll be copying the same username, tab hyphen P, and the password is Tableau 123. Tableau 123. Email I can give it optional, and he should have the publisher, else he cannot publish. So I'm gonna give him work and publish role. Alright, now you can see has been added to the site. That particular one is there. Now I'll go back to this one. I'll log in now again because he has access now. I'm doing from Tableau desktop. Okay? Now he is able to log in. And if you see, where does he access to? He has access to the marketing site. And then I'll say go ahead and publish the workbook. Now he can publish the workbook depends upon he has access to different projects. At the right now, we did not do any permission setup at the project level. If you simply go back and check the permissions here, go to content on here these three dots for this default project. If you see permissions, right, all the users, which basically means I have two users. One is I am the administrator, so by default I'll have access. Second one, this guy, if you see at a project level, he will be able to view, he will be able to save this project. At the workbook level, he can do almost all the activities. And at the data source also, he can do almost view. So he will be able to view this project. That is why on the Tableau desktop, you can see this default project here. Right? Else you would have not seen if I do a permission setup. That we will do little later. Right now, I can do the marketing sales, because again in the marketing sales on Tableau server, I did not set up any kind of, I did not do any kind of, the permission restriction. Go to the three dots, click on permissions. You can see all the two users have the publisher rights at the project level. They can view, they can save. At the workbook level, they can do all the view activities like view, download, interact, and they will be able to edit. If you wanted to do something, we'll do this a little later. But yes, that is the reason he's able to view the project called, the marketing sales. Now, I'm going to apply, okay, what is my workbook name? This is my workbook name, whatever I'm publishing. I'll simply say Superstore Markets, and it has three embedded workbooks, right? Sorry, it has three embedded data sources. We wanted to publish them separately so that you can use them later on for the, to create a separate workbook, or no, it's up to the application team will decide how do they want it. But I'm going to publish this workbook. If I switch back to my server, right now you see marketing sales, there are no workbooks, there are no data sources, there are no projects. This is being created by the administrator, me, the project. I'm the project owner. That's why it's a Tableau Training. Tableau Training means the Tableau server. I'm the one who created. Okay. It can be your site administrator who's responsible for this marketing site. So if I go inside the project, there is nothing now. I'll keep this. I'll come back to the screen and then I'll wait for it. I'll go ahead and publish now. So Superstore Market, and then whatever the option that you want to choose now, I'll publish it. That's they will take care. So when this gets published successfully, in a new browser gets opened with a link. Because we are using the local authentication, I'm creating all the users locally on this local machine itself. You see it went and published now, but when it published, right, it's publishing with this user ID. You can see now my content. You are expert can publish. Since you are expert can publish, when you click on Tableau, right, you don't see all other options, right? Like the way I used to see all the sites, users, schedules, see, I don't see anything. Because you have just a publisher and you have an access to these two, the default and marketing sites. In an actual scenario, if I'm a publisher for the marketing website, this is what I'm going to see. I don't see what is there in the actual server administration page. You see, I don't have access to any other site, or I don't have access to other projects. So I have access to this marketing sales and this default site. I have this one workbook. And this is what I can open. I can play with my workbook just to make sure it's been successfully submitted. So the application team or the developer makes sure it's all working and loading fine from the server. This is a user, a publisher. That is why a publisher cannot see everything that what we were able to see on the Tableau server screen like this. So when you publish, it's getting switched because it's a local machine, right? That is why we're able to switch. The whatever that I saw that, the web edits and all is here. If I go ahead and click on edit, this option is enabled because on the site level creation, we said web edit a tick mark. So a simple changes they can be doing in case if they wanted to go to this workbook and they want to make some changes on the fly without doing the changes on the desktop, again publishing back, they can do something. They can do here. Maybe if they want to change the color coding or whatnot, some simple operations can be performed. Not everything is possible on the desktop directly. Maybe certain things can be done here. You can see, and then they can go ahead and they can save it directly here. That's what is called web edit. Means web edit means on the web URL itself, a developer or a publisher or who has the project owner who has the actual rights to be able to go ahead and edit on the web. Now, this is from a developer perspective because you can see it's a tab. I can see it's a publisher.
At my job, my site role is Tableau admin, right? But when I open
server admin.
Yeah, server admin. Sorry. Server admin, right? But the one that says edit, it doesn't appear on any workbook that I open. So what does that mean?
Really? No, you should have. When you don't say edit, right? So I'm switching back again. I'm going to sign out from the publisher role. I will be using I'm the server administrator role. See, because you are a server admin, you have three different application teams working with it. As I said, default is default site. When you install Tableau server, by default you get a site called default site, and then we created these two sites. Now we are under the marketing site. I can directly go to marketing. As I said last time, there was nothing. Now there's one workbook with 9 sheets or something. If I go to market sales, who is this is what we renamed it, Superstore Hypermarkets, and he's the owner. Now, when you said you go to marketing, right, you are under marketing side, you have to be very make sure that you are under the specific application. You go to settings. I will go ahead and check this option, all the web edit. Web authoring, allow users to use web authoring, right? I will uncheck, I'll save it.
Okay.
Right now, I'll log out from here. Now we'll be logging as a publisher role. Let's see, how does this kind of looks like? Right, so tab I can see, and then Tableau. So happy to again. So if I go back to same marketing field, opening the same workbook. See, we are not worried about whether the workbook is opening or not opening or some issues, right? As long as this is fine, which is fine. Okay, I still have the edit option here. This resource is not found now this time. Actually, they should upgrade out this option. I'm not sure why, but you can't say resource is not found, right? But yes, that's what that web edit means.
Okay, yeah, I understand now.
Tableau sometimes is very nonsense. It gives your error message is not same as what's actual issues. So yeah, I'm perfectly aware that sometimes. Alright, so again I'm coming back to my administration account, marketing. Yeah, so if I go back to this content, so you can create a project level, same thing with the users. In an organization, right? We don't add one by one users, right? We can add one by one user, a different story. But if I want to, let's say, you wanted to add some 500 users, what we do, we don't do it from here. In an Active Directory, you create a distribution list, and then you ask all the users to get subscribed to that that directory. Or you go to Active Directory, you add all the users to that Active Directory DL, and then you go ahead and import that option from here. Import from file, or it talks about, since we have a local authentication, import users from CSV file. You can do directly import users from groups, right? You can go to groups, and then you can say new group. Usually, or we don't want to create any local one. We usually go to users and import the complete users from that one. Okay, that's how the Active Directory works. This groups is basically, we can even import the groups also, right? Directly that will be Active Directory groups. And then if within the group you have 100 users, you want, again, by default, there'll be group called all users group in the group. By default, within the users, you only see your administration user, and then you'll be playing with this user. Again, you can have the option drop down if you wanted to go individual project level, how do you want to navigate, or you wanted to go directly from all the works I wanted to see. It will directly go to that specific workbook. If you wanted to see all the views basically means a combination of the multiple sheets or kind of a dashboards kind of thing. If I simply open this commission model, we have this is one sheet, this is one sheet, basically one dashboard. So the workbook can have the multiple views or multiple dashboards. So the Tableau recommends not more than 5 to 6, depends upon. And how do I know this workbook is connected to which data source? It's connecting to 3 different data sources, and all are being embedded within this. It has 3 different files. Again, so this is all will be taken care by the application team, right? But we need to make sure if they have some issues, if they have some permission issues, at least we should be able to know, okay, what they are lagging, so that we will be able to publish it. if I again go back to this particular users, right? Now, similarly, you can go ahead and practice. You can add the users of different site roles, right? So as I said, the difference lies on now since I added into the um, marketing sales only one user. If I go to the users, how do we navigate is you have to first go to the site if you're a server administrator and then go to the content. Content basically means the projects, workbooks, everything. Users means where you add a user, delete a user, which is the title. Groups means if you can you'll be able to import a group. It's not here because we are not using Active Directory. Or if you wanted to create some local user group, you can group let's say sales group, and then you can assign all the users to that specific group, something like that, right? If you open the sales group, and then you can set the permissions also, and yeah, and then you can add a users. Group is see, I can add both these users, and then I can restrict the users at group level, and then now I can go back to all groups here, and then if I wanted to show the sales team, the permissions not up there. I think you have to go with individual levels. It doesn't show it here. Basically, groups mean nothing but the grouping the users who belong to certain this one. Again, I can add this group at my project level. For example, this project level. If I see the permissions, you can see the permissions either wherever either you can go to three dots and say permissions. It's equivalent to open the project and do it from these three dots. Both are same. You want to create a project, you can say. Now you have users and groups. We can add either a user or a group. If you want to add a group, just by default it'll be always group, and we create a group also as group. And then you can set the permissions at the group level. The project level, I want them to be able to view, and workbook level, I'll be able them to view. When I say view, that means this portion. If I don't want specifically for them to comment on this one, I can go ahead and explicitly deny. If the moment you change it, it will be turned out to be custom, right? And they should be able to interact also. Though they are a viewer, I can still enable them to interact, something like that. So you're doing at this group level. You can see the icon like a sales group. You need to create a group, and that group you will be doing the permission at the project level. If I simply say OK, so whenever somebody has some issue, they're not able to add a comment, they're not able to download this data, and if they belong to some specific group, how do we check? First, we'll ask them, so which project or something. If they say this is the marketing project, right? I'll come back to marketing project, marketing sales. I simply go to the permissions. I will check. This is my group. I'll simply click on this one, and then I'll check this one. I'll check this one. So whatever the complaint is for the individual, the permissions, individual capabilities, what they can do or what they cannot do. This is at workbook level. Project level means this is the project level, right? Edit permissions for the project. And if you do any permission, so sometimes what happens, you may have an access at a project level. But if I go inside a project, you have one workbook, right? Somebody might have explicitly denied again at a workbook level. This is workbook. Okay. This is project. Project level you have access, but you don't have access at the workbook level. I go to permissions, and if I explicitly deny the permissions here, right? If I say deny or none and deny has a little different. We'll talk about that. If I save it right, that means the other user will not be able to open this workbook. Why? Though he has an access at a project level, but the workbook level is been denied. That is why I said yesterday's class, your permissions it works based on your site role as well as an individual permissions has been set at the project, workbook, or sometimes workbook level you may have permission. Okay, so I'll go ahead and edit. I'll give you the permission level interactor. You'll be able to interact and download and whatnot. But sometimes if you have this workbook is connected to some published data sources, which is not right now here because the data sources have been embedded. That's why you don't see here. If you have a published data sources, you need to make sure even the data source level he has the access. Usually this will be taken care by the site administrator. who is publishing, they will already been having access. During a troubleshooting steps, if somebody says I cannot access but my other users can access, you have to check the permissions at 3 places. First thing is whether that user is available in their website or not. Now, there are 2 ways you can check the user, okay? One is you go to, from a server perspective, you go to all sites and then go to users. You search for that user. Assume that you have some 10,000 users and you're able to identify this user. You can go to this user, you can check site membership, which means if this user is part of the multiple sites, go to site membership. It'll list all the sites. You have to select assign the sites. If this user, then we'll understand if this user is part of only one site called sales and he has an Explorer license. This is the highest role, Explorer license. Okay. Assume that if he is part of 2 sites, that will list here. All you have to do is, instead of all sites, go and select all assigned sites. That's the first thing. First thing, I'll make sure this particular user is available in the site or not. Now I'm able to identify this user is part of the specific site, or they will give you the complete link of the workbook itself, then you will be able to identify. For example, if they give you this workbook, right? If I go back to sites, if I go back to marketing, if they say they cannot access this specific workbook, if I open this workbook, you can see site name is what? Marketing. Site followed by site name. If I go back to this and switch, we have 2 different, all manage all sites. If I open the sales workbook, whatever I published here, you will see, the URL site followed by the site name, sales. So by this one itself, I'll be able to identify it belongs to sales site. Then what I do, I need to make sure 3 things. He has access at the project level, he has access at the workbook level, and he has access at the data source level, in case if they're published data sources. So we always pay attention to this one. Okay, who is the owner when this was modified? Sometimes for the, for any of the troubleshooting purposes. Okay, you should always pay attention to this one. Okay, by default there will be a site called default site. By default there will be a project called. By default there will be group called all users group. By default there will be a project called a default project. You go to content, it's a default project. Usually we use this default project to inherit the permissions that we will see in the next class. How do I inherit? I wanted to set some permissions as a template, and I want all my projects, whatever I'm going to create the next project, has to inherit those permissions. So this class will learn how do we create a users, how do we create a sites. Right? If you go to all sites, you have an option to create a new site. And then application, based on application specific, we make sure how much space they need, how many users are they procuring, and if they have a specific databases, then you have to install the database also, database drivers. For that, what we do, we go to drivers Tableau page, just drivers Tableau page, that will give you this drivers download. And if you scroll down, if they say, hey, I'm using Oracle driver, then I have to make sure the Oracle has been installed on this machine. So you go to Oracle, just a Windows 64. You see, based on the version, it talks about Tableau Desktop. I'm talking about Tableau Server because it should work on the Tableau Server. This is all different versions of Tableau Desktop. It's asking to install the supported version based on your version type. So Tableau Server from version 10.0 to 2020.1. So that it will be installed by default with Tableau Server. So when we install Tableau Server, this is installed by default. So you should be able to good to establish your connections. But assume that we wanted to install some other drivers. You go ahead and choose from here. Whatever as I said in the first class, Tableau supports that 60 plus native data sources, and this is a big list that they have here, right? Let's assume that we wanted to support maybe a MongoDB, or maybe a MariaDB, whatever it is. And based on the version that you're installing on your Tableau server, you can see both Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server. Go to this one. This MariaDB drivers are available to download from the MariaDB website. Sometimes you have to go there and then you have to download here. Or if you wanted to install, let's say Redshift. Redshift is what? Amazon Redshift. So go to Amazon Redshift and they see we go to Amazon Redshift.
Quick question. Most of these drivers don't come inside with Tableau Server.
Not everything. By default, there will be 3, I guess. One is your Postgres, one is your the Oracle, but rest all we need to install on the machine. Depends upon your data source. Correct. That is why whenever we work with the application team, before we even create a site in the development or a test environment, we ask them, okay, what data source are you using? So what is your data source by which you're building the visualization? If they say, hey, we are using the Redshift, I need to make sure, do we have the Redshift drivers, or do really the Redshift supported by Tableau or not? If that doesn't support, then we need to work with it. But the good part is, most of the things, whatever you see, like 70+ native data sources are supported today. If they say, hey, I'm using SAP HANA, then you need to work with, you need to make sure you install the SAP HANA drivers. If you don't have the HANA driver, because SAP asks, for instance, SAP requires a username and password to log into their website, then you can tell them, application team, you give me the drivers, right? I will go ahead and install for you. So you get those simple ODBC or whatever the drivers, and you need to install on this box for the connections to work. Just say if you don't have login credentials, contact your SAP administrator for help getting the drivers. SAP doesn't give any drivers or anything without problem. PostgreSQL, again, you see PostgreSQL is installed by default with Tableau Desktop and later. Same with the Tableau Server, I believe. So you don't have to you can see here. The Windows driver for Postgres is installed by default for Tableau Server. So only for Postgres, Oracle, it is, and I believe for a MariaDB, I think it's been installed by default. Rest of them you need to install based on the application team requirements. Once that is there, when they publish the content to the Tableau server, then they will be able to refresh or they will be able to connect live connection. So that we will see in the next class. But yeah, that's one additional thing that we need to keep in mind when we provision the site. So I'm on my administration page. Sometimes if you wanted to make sure what is my account, just what is my version, go to this I icon information. You can say about Tableau server. This is my version, and this is my user account, and then you can go to my account settings, and you can show your role is server administrator, and then where is your language, unspecified usually. Sometimes if you want to be specific when it comes to English, make sure, because sometimes the dashboards are language specific, so you need to work with them to work. Not every time, but just keep in mind, right? It's because the Tableau supports other languages also, so you can check that. We don't change anything basically here, but for your information. So all server users, remember how this user will be displayed based on how you selected here. All the sites have these many users. If I simply go to the one that is data marketing, I have created only one user. We go to users, you will see only one user. I am the server administration, and I created a the project called marketing sale. That is why I am able to see this. Else you won't even you don't see your username. Though you are a server admin, you will not be. At times, if you don't own any content, or if you're not the owner of any of the content, your name will not appear. That doesn't mean that you cannot access. Just that you're not the owner of any of the content. Because I am the content owner here for the sales. Because you see, I'm the one. That's why I'm able to see my users list here. If I create a site administrator, right, then I'll not be able to see that. You can actually quickly do that. Alright, I'll say new user. I'm gonna have Tableau-A. He is the administrator, right? I'm gonna give him the administrator privileges. So tab-A, same password, Tableau 150, and then I'm gonna say what? He is the server, not server administrator, but a site administrator. And when I say site administrator, he is site admin for marketing. So when I log in with this user, he will not be seeing this drop down because he is not site admin for multiple sites. He is only site admin for marketing. He will see directly marketing. There won't be this scroll down. Only server administrator has such sites of seeing everything on server. Now this user has been added. You can see site admin, right? Now what I'll do, I'll go to content. I will change this marketing project under my name to, from the server admin to change the owner. I will keep it under to who is an administrator. Okay, now if you come back to the users, I don't think I can do it myself. Let's see if I can do it myself. Because I don't own content, okay, you cannot perform this action by yourself because I'm the admin. Now a site admin can do it. I think, let's see how they sign out. I'll be logging as tab-a. As I said, I am the site administrator for marketing. I will see all these things. You see, as a publisher, he was not able to see these ones because a publisher cannot add a user. A publisher cannot see which group he is part of. A publisher cannot schedule anything, or he cannot see any of the status. Because I am a site administrator, I can see everything, but you don't see that the drop down or anything. You can see directly the URL here, site and marketing, and whatever the content in the entire project, I should be able to see that. If I go to grid mode, I'm the market sales, and you can see I've already changed the user last time. I am the administrator now. If I go to marketing sales, or I can simply go to the users, and I can, let's see if I can, because I am a site admin, because this guy is a server admin, right? I may not be able to do it because it's an highest privilege than this one. Group membership, all users outside. See, I can remove this guy. I can remove the publisher, but this server admin is greater than this site admin. That's why I don't see an option to remove from here. I can see only a group membership. I'll check that out later on. Don't worry about it. But now you see, I'm the server, sorry, the site admin. I have a privilege to create a new project and say again that this is all about the market, regional market sales. So you can say regional markets. And then if I add some users, I can do whatever I want. If I wanted to change the purple sum rule, I can add a user, like all these users. Actually, the site administrator is the one who is responsible for content management. When I say content management, he is responsible to add a users. He is responsible to create groups or downloads or anything. Schedules, I'll talk about later, but he cannot do anything on this one. You can only see what is being scheduled. But yes, okay. On today's class, we're talking only about content and user. A site administrator can do anything and everything. He can go ahead and delete the entire project, right? Because he's basically acting like a server admin within the site. Within his site, he can do anything. If he doesn't want this default, I think he cannot delete this because this is a default site. But yeah, if you want to create one more project within the regional, again, I can go ahead and create a nested project and whatnot. So creating the project, creating the work, again, any permission setup, everything can be taken care by a site administrator, or I can also create a one more user and I can make them like a project owner at this project level. If I go to the permission of this one, right, you might see something like this. By default, now all the users we see, this is an administrator guy, he's a publisher, and I'm the administrator. You will not be able to differentiate here who is site admin and who is server admin at this moment because both exist administrator. Just remember that. And yeah, I think that's fine. I'll talk about tomorrow because we'll have the more content level permissions. Don't want to mess up multiples. Just remember, content means your project, workbook, everything. Users means You can add users. What is their maximum site role? If they are part of any of the groups, you can see what is the last signed in. If you go to groups, if you have any groups is being created, that group will be used under the content to map the project level permissions. You don't see directly if you go to groups, you can only see rename, delete or something like that. But this group might be used under the project to map the permissions. Go to permissions. I can import a group and a user from here, right? I can do sales group and then I can give permissions. So remember the flow. Groups are getting mapped to the content where you can do it. So we also looked at from a Tableau desktop, right? Based on your access and permissions, how do you publish it to the server? So since I'm the site administrator here, I logged in as a site administrator. You can even check here, go back to my content setting. You can check I'm the site administrator. That is why I'm a site admin for only one site. That's why I don't see any drop down. It doesn't even tell me about what site name it is. So you have to understand site name based on this one, site role and marketing here. If you go to the status page, this one will be talked at last. Don't worry about any of these tabs for now. Yeah, this is how it is. If you are a site admin for multiple sites, you will see this, this scroll down, just like a server admin. You will be able to see. I'm switching back to the server admin again. So when I'm logging in, I can log into any site. So I'm just getting into the machine. Now I can switch between multiple sites because we are the site administrator. Server administrator. As a server admin, whenever I log into my machine first in the morning, what I make sure I go to all sites, right? Manage all sites. I go to status page. I check whether the services are up and running. This is what I make sure. Yes. Or sometimes I go to TSM. I simply say TSM status. Anything is fine. This is fine. That means that you are logging in. Or you simply go to upload it. You can see all the individual processes are up and running. That's what I make sure as a server admin, because we are not responsible for any of the content management or what is there, how many years has been added, etc. That we don't, because every user has to be a licensed user within the server admin. So when somebody users came into picture means what? They have already been filled the provision form and we have added them in the lower environments, and that's how they finally came into this production form. They can't come directly added. But out of 100 users that we provision, it's up to the, it's up to the, let's say we have provisioned here, right? And then here, we have provisioned some 10 users for marketing, and for sales, it's up to the team. How many of them? Who are they? Maybe today I add a user, and after 2 months, if they left it, I can make them unlicensed and I can bring in the other license. But you cannot exceed more than 10 active users. The moment you exceed, it will say your quota is got over, because you have a limit of 10 users. If you give simply like a server limit, right, that means any number of people can keep on adding it, and we will not know in terms of costing, in terms of architecture, in terms of the capacity planning. So that's all I have for today's class. We will continue tomorrow. So with that, I'll be moving on today. So yesterday, what we learned again, we went and created a new site, a new application came to us. All sales, we have added 5 users, and this particular, and some developer went and published one workbook, and we learned how do we set permissions, right, at the project level. And if we lock the permissions at the project level, those permissions will be inherited to the, whatever the content within that project. For example, if I create one more project within the project, that will again inherit the permissions what is being set here, as long as you lock it. So, currently the permissions are in unlocked, which means they have been managed independently at each level. So today we're going to learn a little bit of Tableau Desktop before, or else let's explore what are all we have. Okay, let's see. I didn't explore other options. So this top level project basically shows two means whatever we have it here. Okay, 1, 2. In case if you have create one more, I'm going to create some more nested project here within the default site. Let's say test project. Create. And then if you go back to Explorer, if you say total projects will be now 2, which means only total part will only show outside world 2. But if you see all projects is 3. Why 3? This one default sales one, and there is one other part inside. You click on this. That's how it calculates. Okay, 3. Explorer. Total projects is 2. What is being shown outside? All projects is within the nested project. This will show all workbooks. Right now I have only one workbook, so it's called one workbook. Views basically means your individual sheets or individual dashboards. Total we have 9. In case if I publish one, publish the data sources. See, every workbook will already have the data source connection, right? If I go to open, this is my workbook called Superstore. Obviously, this Superstore workbook somewhere should be pointing to these data sources. But you cannot create a new workbook on top of this because these are embedded within the workbook. That is why whatever the data sources which are embedded within the workbook or within this dashboard, they will not be shown at here. They don't be shown up here. Whatever is the published data sources, that will be shown up here. Okay, what do you mean by this? Now we're going to learn, and then I'll explore later. So today I'm going to I'll show you the right example.
Can you go to data source to the previous page? There were 3 data sources.
Yeah, okay. You mean within the workbook, right?
Yeah.
Embedded data sources, okay?
Yeah, so when you try to test connectivity with the data source, sometimes
right.
I get a message saying that there are fields that are not editable.
Correct, this is correct.
Yeah,
you see this one? Trace. Because if you see, right, you need to understand what is the the end format of this one, right? This is an hyper format. Hyper basically means your extract. Okay, so what is hyper? Just to understand. So whenever we have two things, right? You remember in entire Tableau, if assuming that I am a developer, first thing or my application requirement is, do I need a live connection or am I okay with an extract? What is live connection? Live basically means it's a live connection. Now I'll explain the same thing. We'll come back to this later. I'm going to my Tableau desktop. Right. So whenever you install your Tableau desktop, here this is the default place where your Tableau desktop will get installed. On your C drive, whatever your username is, here this username is Tableau Training. It's your username. Go to Documents. There will be a folder called My Tableau Repository. This is where your Tableau desktop is get installed. And within this My Tableau Repository, there will be a subfolders which are associated with. For instance, if I just go to Explorer mode, I'm going to, it should be documents here itself, but I don't see, so I'll go to C drive, users, this is my username and my documents. So within the documents, you can have other folders, but this is called My Tableau Repository. This folder will be installed as part of the Tableau desktop installation. Okay, Tableau desktop installation. Remember, you can install for a 14-day trial period multiple times. Just for instance, you can install 2018.2 and then 2018.3 you can also install for 14 days. So as a practice purpose, if you want to try, you can always try these multiple versions. Okay. So there is no hurdle in terms of installing the Tableau desktop. Simply go to how do I install? Let's say I want Tableau desktop 2019. So use anything about 2018 and later, that's fine. Okay, Tableau desktop, which is basically to build the dashboards to connect the data sources and build it. Let's say 2019.2. Yeah, just go to Tableau desktop 2019.2. all you have to pay attention is this is important. This 2 is important. Okay. If you say 2.1 and then tomorrow if you install 2.2, that will not work. So this is been identified at the operating system level. So download link, I think they're saying, remember this one, right? If you go to, this is support voice, all the releases they have. You can see Tableau desktop and they have a number of versions over here. Just choose a version, pay attention to this one. And then this is what the, the latest version. Let's say I want to install 2019.2 and they may have some, the minor versions you can see here, 1.5, 1.3, 1.2. The moment you say 2, none of this will work. All this will work only for 14 days. Okay, so let's say I'll go with this latest version. Go to this, you see download Tableau desktop. This is a very lightweight file, hardly some 400 MB file, and simply click on next. It will get installed. So you get for a 14 days. If I want the next after 14 days, if I want to practice, install anything greater than 2. That means I'll go back to this one, same page, right? And I'll put it into this one. I'll install 2019.3. Again, any of this version only one time. You can go ahead and watch this one. Again, you get for 14 days. Now, as part of you, when you click on next, it will be installing under the documents. A folder will be created for my Tableau repository. Here you will have subfolders. What is the subfolders? If you pay attention, to store the workbooks, it says workbooks. To connect to and establish data sources or your source file set, it says sources. But for learning purposes, Tableau will give an Excel file. You see, we have installed 2018 version. That's why it's called version 2018. Language English. There will be some sample. This is actually an Excel file. Okay, this Excel file. Because we don't have Excel file on this machine, it's not able to identify. So this is what the sample, the workbook that will be installed as part of the installation. And if I show it to you, okay, what is there here? I'm going to show on my local machine. How does the data looks like and what on my Tableau desktop, right? I'm going to connect to the same thing. So I'm on Tableau desktop. I'm going to connect to this Excel file, whatever was given to me, because we don't have an Excel. I can't open Excel, but I'll show you what you see. Any file, Excel file. Simply, this is what we call, just like SAP Business Object, this is something called as a universe. We have in Tableau, we call it as a superstore. This is the sample superstore Excel file that will be shipped as part of the Tableau desktop tool. Okay, for our learning purpose. This has some 3 tables called orders, people, and returns. It's the same thing because I can have open multiple instances. You might see something like this. Simply put this into this tag space. So whatever the columns in the order display, that will come up. And if I go to sheet 1, right, to build my visualizations. So based on the data types has been defined at these levels, like ABC means string, orders mean this is basically again, you can see in the date format, and this is like an integer. If you click on that, shows you number for date and time, string, boolean, etc. Based on the data types defined, it will arrange dimensions and measures. Okay, measures basically means your numerical value. This is also can be identified based on like the green tablet kind of icon. Like you see, it's all green color because these are measures. And this is like kind of a blue icon. Blue basically means your discrete values. If you click on category, I have 3 different values and you get 3 different furniture of this button technology. So we have 3 different values. It's called distinct. And it will be represented like a blue, blue pill, right? Kind of a blue pill. And this one, if I simply drag in the sales amount, and this will, this is like a green pill, and this basically we call it the continuous. Continuous basically means, today my total sales is somewhere around 200k. This will have an axis. So basically, the measure attribute will create an axis for me, and my dimension or a discrete. This is basically your key performance indicator. We have 3 distinct. That is why if you put category into this colors box, right, I get 3 distinct colors because it's a discrete field, so 3 distinct colors. But if you put color into, let's take the sales amount, and if you see as of now all are same blue color. If I put sales into my color box, you get only one color, but that color is kind of a radiant color from lower to higher, because this has been, it's not a distinct, but it is being represented as a continuous. I have total from here to here, and it's a continuous. Okay, so play with this one. The reason I came here is, I told in Tableau you can have live or an extract connection. Live means you're connected to your live source. So tomorrow, if there are any changes, so for example, category wise, I'm building a simple report, some sales data. Okay, now let's put this one into here. So we get some bar graph and then category, and then maybe some order date. Individual years of data by each category, you get something. And if you say a single cylinder indicates it's a live connection. If, how do I know? There are multiple ways I will be knowing. One is you can go to click on data source. It will show live connection, right? If you wanted to convert to an extract basically means subset of data. Extract will include all data, or I don't want all data, I want subset of data. I can go to it and I can filter something. Let's say add, and then if I want for specific years of data, I'm just showing you, let's say I don't want 2015, I want 2017. Then this will say, instead of all data, subset of data, because we applied filter at file extracting. And then if you go to the sheet 1, it will say, okay, where do you want me to store the subset of data? Obviously, we will be storing that subset of data into the my Tableau data engine folder, where in my Tableau server. So today, whatever the application teams bringing in the huge amount of data, right, that is getting stored into our Tableau server boxes itself. And which format they will store, you can see the file format save as Tableau data extract dot hyper. So that is what it is. Extract means dot hyper format. What is hyper? Hyper basically is an kind of an in-memory technology in terms of data processing, and it's basically data processing and then loading anything on the data, right? Bringing in the data to visualization is much faster. That's what they call it as, compared to the older version. There used to be a older version we called it as .tde, which is nothing but Tableau data extract, again the same thing, but this got decommissioned from 10.4 and earlier. Okay. Today there are some third-party tools like an Alfix or all. They still be using this one. So these both are same. This is still 10.4 and below, from 10.5 version here. So currently we are in this one, which means what is extract means your subset of data, and that will be stored in format of .hyper format, which Tableau can understand. That is what you will be seeing here. Okay, where did you be storing it? It will be storing within your server box. Right now I'm storing under the data sources folder. Save it, and then if you see, live is converted into extract, and you will see some kind of like a double cylinder. Double cylinder basically means subset of data is broken. I think that is what, if I switch back to my Tableau instance, right? Going back to here, let me close this one. On this one, you see, it says .hyper. This was supposed to show clearly two symbols, and that is what you see .hyper here. But it says a live connection to it. It was supposed to an extract. But looking at the file itself, we can say usually it should be an extract. We can open this. So extract file, obviously you cannot edit a connection because the connections are not related to, it's a kind of a file, right? It's like this file. Now I have saved into data sources. You see, this is what I've created now. Orders, not this one. Where did we save it? You can right click and see And data sources. We can go to data sources and see file repository location, data sources. It got saved somewhere here, I think. Let me save it. Or else, let me create one more time. I'll go to live and then extract. It's actually extract will create first time if I want to complete this. Extract data. It will only create, you get that prompt for the first time. From second time onwards, it will do an extract, but it will be storing on the same location. So the time is 2:27. I think this is the file itself. I think this is what you saved it. That's fine. So let's see now. Okay, this is an extract file. I will go ahead and publish now. Okay, it's a simple document. I'll publish my server. I've already connected to sales one with the user publisher role, and I'm publishing the workbook. Okay, and to learn this one is an extract one. So I'll say extract hyphen workbook. This time I will be publishing my data source also separately. If I don't want to embed, I wanted to publish separately, which means what? There will be one workbook, there will be one data source. If I go back to content, I'm publishing to this. Right now, there will be 0 sources. So this publishing separately one published sources that will become and sit here. And one workbook will become 2 because I'm publishing to this folder. Alright. So my workbook name is 1. My project is my sales 1. This is my workbook name, and I'm not embedding within it. I'm publishing it. You see, I'm not embedding. If you want to embed, you have to choose embedding workbook. I don't want to embed. I want to publish separately. And let's see how this works. One publish sources, and this is all fine. Just how do you want it to show them? So whenever it publishes, it opens a new browser, and it will show you the prompt. It has been successfully published. So it's basically sending that subset of data, right? Whatever was there in local to you, to the Tableau box. Now you can see one workbook, one data source. You can see the data source here, 2 cylinder symbol, which means it's an extract. And this is your workbook symbol, some kind of visualization. Now I'll log out because we have only one instance, so it's been logged in as an publisher. So log in here and the server name. Go to sales project. Now you can see one data source which we published and 2 workbooks. Click on sales 1. This is what we published, right? Workbook. Open this workbook. Your data source, if you go to, you will see, though it says a live to what? Live to this one. But this is not actually live. If you click on this one, you will see it's an extract. That is why you have an option called extract refresh. So that we will be learning it, coming back to this one. But right now it's connecting to one extract file. Don't get confused the word of this extract. This is little tricky again. This one. So this workbook is connected to live to an extract, which means like this. This is workbook. This is the data source. Right. So workbook is, I've already connected to this one. And this is, there are 2 different data sources. One is your actual source file. And what is there in the Tableau one, Tableau data source. This source file, what we become an extract, right? Because that's how I pull the data now. If you see, that's how I pull the data on my Tableau desktop. That means if this has already been published data source. The moment you publish it, this becomes like a Tableau symbol. So if I try to edit this data source, right, this will be connecting to my online server because this has already been published towards it. Okay, so don't get confused. I'll publish again, okay? So this will be here. So this is my workbook. And this is the view that we created. If I just open it. Alright, so this is all fine, and this is connecting to one data source called here. And basically what it's saying is this particular workbook extract has a live connection to this extract. When I say live, which means this is not live to the actual source file. It is live to this extract file. How do I know this is an extract file? You click on this. Because it's enabled, you click on this one. You see that it's an extract file. Here is the one. Order sample super short. You see this data source. So this is an extract file to this data source. So let me make it a different way. I'll show you how does the live file looks like. And again, I'll go to the main page. I don't want this. I'll connect to a new file. I'm connecting to some other file this time. Okay, so I'll bring in something. This time I'm connecting live to my data source. Okay, that means if someone makes changes to this actual file, it could be your data, it could be your Oracle source, or it could be any source for that matter. It has a live connection. That means it should have a single cylinder. You see, it has a single cylinder. This was my older one. I'll just close this one. This is fine. Okay, use single source, and then again a simple report, a simple cross-tab reporting. Now I'm publishing server. Already logged in the same thing. I'll say publish the workbook, and then this I'm gonna say it's a live connection. Live. Again, if you wanted to publish, again I don't want embed. I'll publish separately. Okay, I'll say live workbook one publish separately. What is the name of this published data source? This one. Let's publish this one. This is all will be done by the Tableau developers. Okay, you don't have to worry. So you should understand what is live and what is. You can see it's published here now. And if I go back to sales one, you will have two data sources because I have published two. Either you can navigate from here and go to two data sources. Okay. Now you can see the difference. The one which I published earlier, right? You see, it's an extract. You see, this is a live, the one that I just published from here. And you can see extract is based on this symbol. Subset of data, this is here. So if you click on this one, and that is connecting to basically one connection, which is connecting to this Microsoft Excel. If you cannot edit a file with a Microsoft Excel because you have to give the file path location of this one, then only it works. Right? If you have your Oracle connection, that will always be fine. Because it's in same with the other one. If I navigate back to all data sources, this is a live connection. I click on this one. This is coming to an ASCII. I'll let you know what is an ASCII, right? So certain connections which you cannot edit is whenever if it's an Excel file, right, you cannot edit the connections and say connections are testing. If it's an extract file, you cannot do that. Okay, that's basically the fundamental idea, and your report should be fine. But if you have a normal database connections, you can always connect, and then you can go to the particular connections, and you should be able to test the connections whenever they publish. Extract means subset of data. Live means live to my actual databases. Now, how do I schedule this refresh? Because it has got only a subset of data, and then I want a nightly refresh. That is when you go to this option called schedule. That is our next stop. That is where I went and published two different things. So today, if I wanted to, refresh this, right? How do I see? You will not be seeing a refresh option here called refresh extract. You see, you don't see refresh extract. Why? This is not an it's a live, but I can refresh if I am the developer. I don't want to schedule. I wanted to, right now immediately I wanted to refresh the data. How do I do it? You can check. Right now the last extract is 2:29 a.m. Okay, as per this document, which is like 10 minutes ago. Now I'll have an option called refresh extract, which means this is an extract file. This will connect to my actual source file and it will refresh. Do you want to schedule a refresh? We will learn later. Refresh right away. Refresh, full refresh. Created one extract refresh. How do I say it? Just to introduce the concept of how do I know my schedules are refreshing fine or not. What you can do, you can go back to status. Only a site administrator and a server admin can see this page. This is basically your default metrics. We call default metrics basically, how many dashboards are usage. Like you can see usage and users are publishing views. I'll come back to this later on a separate task. But just to make sure whatever we ran just now, right, is it working fine or not? We can go to the backgrounder task. We call them a backgrounder because basically they are the backgrounder jobs running, and do the jobs are running successfully or not. I go to backgrounder task for extracts. If you don't see it also, it's fine. Now you can see I have refreshed my data source for order sample store, and it's in the pending state. Why is it in the pending state? If it's in a pending state, I'm going to open a new worksheet just to make sure my background jobs are running. So whenever you create an extract, right, your background job will be initiated this one. Go to status to this one. Go to you can go to sales one and then go to status. Have to be own, right. So only the server administrator would be able to see this page. Okay, not even a site administrator. Only the server admin can see this page. If the background job is running, you will see this one keeps spinning up. So right now, if I go back to again scroll down all the way, I go to background task for extracts. Then you wanted to see that extract was running or not. Because I am the administrator, so you can see everything. So something got failed here. If this is failed, you can see error, and you just hover over it. It will show what is the issue. It says it was not able to identify the file, basically whatever is there. Though the file is there, it's still not able to identify. And that is the reason it is not able to refresh and extract, and it's asking to check if the file is there and do you have a sufficient the access. This is failing because of another reason. I think it doesn't have something called a client you need. A web client services should be running on this machine. I'll let you know tomorrow, right? And then we'll do it. But the idea is how do, when I'm the developer, I'll go ahead and publish, and we can create a schedules on the server. So how do I know publish data sources? Whenever you have the published data sources, kind of a reusability, we can click on this, go to all the data sources. It can be both live and an extract. You can say live means with one cylinder, and extract means two cylinders kind of thing there. And you can see the last refresh, and if it's a fail, you may have some of the warnings or an alert stage. Assume that if I am the developer and if I have already scheduled this one, right? If you remember at the settings level, we learned something here. Whenever something goes wrong here, refresh failure notifications, you will be receiving an email saying that hey, send emails to data sources, workflows, and workbook owner when the refresh fails. So you will receive an email saying that your job has been failed. That is what we did. How do they sending an email? Okay, where is the mailing server? That is what we learned in the here on the TSM page, right? On the TSM, if you go to the notifications here, we have to enter our email server, SMTP server, whatever we have configured here. Events. All right. This is this email server. Based on this email server, whatever you put your actual SMTP server, that's how it's sending that. We also have some of the other events also. along with that. Okay, this is the link actually. So let's run the few things. Assume that I'm the admin again. Already something is been there. What are the things? You can browse it directly from Explorer. I'm within a site level. Okay, within the site level, I'm doing it. I should be able to see total projects which are being showing up here. Again, all projects, all workbooks, all the views, and then data sources if you have any flows. And then you can also see project level, who is the owner, when it's created, and how many you have. And then if you don't want to do this one, you can always click on this one. You can action, you can rename it, you can move it. When I say move it means you can only move one project to other project within a site. Remember, you cannot move the content outside the site level. Okay. Tableau is a self-service tool. You cannot migrate this from one server to the other server. Right now, they're coming up with a new license tool, but until so far, there is no way called a migration tool as such. You cannot even move the content from sales one to some other site called sales. You see, that's why you don't see an option. You see only sales one. It is not because I don't have the other site. I have other site called the default site, but it's still not showing up because you cannot move it. Okay. If I say move, you can only move to within the default project. You see, this is a site, not showing the default site. So content cannot be moved outside the site. And the other option what we have is the permissions, which we already learned. Either you can do it like this. All you have to pay attention is, okay, where am I putting the permissions? Here at the project level. Either you can select from here and then go to actions, or you simply click on this one and then say permissions. It's all same actually. You see, you click on it, same rename, move, permission, change, detail. Or you select this one and click on actions. It's the same options. The same operation can be done in the multiple ways, however you feel comfortable. And then if you wanted to change the owner of this one, right now it's an administrator. I want to change some owner. Go ahead and choose whoever wants to be. Okay, make sure he has the right permissions on this project level. And if you want to delete it, you can delete it. And I'm going inside a project. We'll have all the workbooks in this format. Data sources will be identified in this format. Single data source means live. Extract means two double cylinders, which are workbooks. Again, the same thing. If you wanted to, add to your favorites, you can add it. So you can filter this. Where do I filter it? You go to Explorer. You have this filter, right? You have some options based on my favorites. That will be enabled. Or your by owner you wanted to filter. I know this is owner. The moment you click on it, it's already been assigned. You can get it owner. So it's basically all simple things. Modified owner before, later on, etc. So let's go with find the project. And then if I wanted to do, okay, what all I can do with this workbook? Same thing, I can delete, I can rename, etc. So this specific workbook I am able to edit because I am the server admin, right? I can edit a workbook. If you click on this edit a workbook, what will happen next? So basically you're modifying the workbook, the development content. On the fly, as I said, on the web, whatever we can modify, this is called as web edit. We usually don't do this one, right? Usually, we never do basically server admin. But in case if you are the author of this workbook and you missed to add one field called, let's say, maybe the region field, you can simply double click on that, and then you want to arrange this one maybe by the region first field, right? And then on the fly, and then you can save it. If you have an authorization, you'll be able to save. It says same folder, but I think it's asking to save it as a new workbook. It's not able to overwrite. Let's see why something else. File. You see, I don't see a save option. I have to go to save as. Okay. It's basically not allowing to overwrite within the existing workbook. So basically, whenever you want to edit the same workbook, you can do that. If you wanted to download this workbook, right, you publish something and then you want to edit always, you go ahead and say download, and you will get that. As I said, Tableau just like our Excel format .xls, text file will be .txt. You're downloading only the workbook, which is kind of the metadata file called .twb. TWB is basically just a metadata file, data about data. It doesn't have actual data, only the metadata information, which includes your connection details and whatnot, called .twb, Tableau Workbook. T means Tableau, WB means Workbook, only a metadata file. That is why this file size will be hardly in KBs and MBs. Assume that I want to download the entire thing, then you have to save this file as a packaged workbook. You cannot do it from here. You have to do packaged workbook on your Tableau desktop. Whenever we send it to the Tableau, for any troubleshooting purpose. And then if I want to tag something, rename, again move, same thing, I can move only within the projects I can move, but not outside a site. Because I am the administrator, I have all these options. Okay, else will not be able to see all the options. You can go ahead and explore when you log in as a publisher. Will you be able to move other workbooks which you are owner of? I don't think so. But you will be able to delete if you have the authorization of this workbook. You can delete, you can do everything. Okay. Yeah. This is not enabled here because we have already selected here. If you don't select it here, it will enable from here. Okay, it's same thing. Now we can say rename it, move, then permissions. If you wanted to set up the permissions at the workbook level, how do I set up that? You can see permissions for the workbook, this workbook, extract workbook, and whatever the groups that you already created in the last class, you can assign. I can even assign an individual user also. It's not that I have to be group. It's a user, and then I'm explicitly assigning this user, and he is an administrator. Okay, he's already an administrator. You see, he's already an administrator. I don't have to give him. Even if you simply say an interactor, or let's say viewer, right? He's an administrator. Basically, you can see how these permissions works usually is, right? The combination of, as I said, your site role and the capabilities. So he's already a site level administrator. Site level administrator, again, you cannot restrict a site admin only with a viewer kind of thing. That will not work. Remember that. You can only restrict other ones like an explorer. You can restrict to not to view, but you cannot tell them, hey, the site administrator cannot view my content. You cannot tell that because he is completely authorized, right? It is like we both are server administrator, and then you're telling, no, I don't want to give Prasad certain capabilities. If you don't want to give, then you have to limit my, then you have to make it me as a site admin. But you cannot tell we both are server admin, but I don't want Prasad to see something. That will not work. Though I'm saying the administrator as a viewer, you can tell it why he is the site administrator. So don't get confused with that. But the rest all you can do, because now if you want to delete it, I can just go ahead and delete it. Next name, first thing it needs save, and then you can just go ahead and delete it. Yeah, I've deleted the user. And then you can see who is the owner. By default, whoever is going to publish the content to the Tableau server, they become the owner of it. And whenever there's a modified date, it will be updated. So if you want to change the owner, as I said, so change the owner, make sure he has an appropriate permission. If you make this owner as a viewer, right, that will not work because a viewer cannot edit the content, all those things. So make sure you should have at least the public service. Tab reviews basically means do you wanted to see like this tab next to next or not. For instance, sales one, we already have Superstore here. If you see, right, if I say this one, this workbook, if you pay close attention to this one, this is right now, I have only one is opening. If I want this second one to open it, it's not here. I have to go back to Superstore. I have to open the product. I don't want every time to go back. I want next to next, give me like a tab. Then what I can do, I can simply go to my Superstore. I can say tab reviews. Then it says change the tab display option workbook, show Tableau enable navigation. I want to show the tabs, so show tabs. Now you can see the difference. Usually by default, most of the time, users prefer the tabs only. They can browse through wherever they want. Alright, so that now you can see overview is here, product is here, customers is here. This is called tab, next to tab. But this has some in terms of the performance considerations. But this is what most of the users will prefer, and that's not because I cannot go back every time to Superstore and then I can enable, right? If you wanted to, disable that option, you can go back to again same thing, tabbed views, and you want to hide it, you go ahead and hide it. Alright, coming back to self project, and then if you select option, what else we have it here? That is one important one, tabbed views. You can this is a workbook, that's why this refresh extract is failed, because this is workbook. If you wanted workbook, it already has a live connection, that we cannot do. If you wanted to see any revision history, if you have published multiple times, you can see here when was published. And if you want to delete it, go ahead and delete it. It's the same option. You do it from here. Same thing, tag, rename, permissions, tab views here. So if I go back, if I open this workbook, within the workbook, you will have multiple views here. And then if you wanted to, this is basically connecting to your live connection. Okay, that is why you don't see this refresh extract. Whenever you don't see refresh extract, basically means it's a live connection. Then you can go to data sources, you can click on this auto sample store. And you can see that particular workbook was connected to this particular data source is connected to which workbook? Connection to this, connected to this workbook. So this is the connection. And this is connected to workbook, you can see here. This is the connection name. It's connected to one workbook. Do you have any refresh extract? As of now, no. If you wanted to refresh extract, this is basically an extract itself. But this is a published extract. This is what you're not showing that. Okay, again, you don't have to do any of this. You're not be authorized to content management, but there's some issues there. You should be able to go back and check. Okay. As I said, the entire flow goes like this. It will flow. It's the same thing. If you pay attention, it's all about site level. Right. Let's write the one simple kind of an hierarchy, so you will have very clear understanding. First thing is your site highest. Let's talk about like this, right? What are the different site level roles I have? First thing is server administrator. Like we are the ones, right? Who will do installation, upgrades, backups, etc. Weekly maintenance and making sure the system is up and running. Or I would say capacity planning, scalability, architecture. Who is responsible? So we are all this is the one. Next level is what? Application team I want. Some application teams wants to leverage the Tableau for their data analysis purpose. So first thing what we do, we have the onboarding form, right? How many users I need, and then I'm going to create a site for them. That is what you will have an administrator called site administrator. Now he is responsible for within the site level. He can just like here, I've created a site called sales1 within the users. Okay, first time the server administrator has to create a user, okay, because you will not, how do he will log in, right? Assume that, Omar is the site administrator for sales. How would he log in even if I don't give an access? So one of our team will give him an access. Then I will tell them, you go ahead and manage your own site based on whatever you create for me. And he will say, he might have given some 10 users and whatever the content that he wanted to publish, whatever the data sources, he will manage that. If assume that he is already, he'll be able to log into this one. He cannot see all these things, okay? He can only see users and group. He cannot see schedules. As I said, schedules is kind of a server specific. It's not a site level. Remember this, schedules and tasks are not site level. Let's call it site level. So he will do the manage and all this. Now, what are the different roles we have? We learned about viewer. Okay. Remember, viewer, they're renamed into the latest version. They're calling it as a read only. Name itself says read only means just a viewer license, like this one, whatever you see. User, this one, right? Like an explorer, we have a viewer. Go to site pro. Instead of viewer, they're calling it as a read only now. That's the new terminology. So viewer can only view, and then explorer can able to explore what are the filter options. It can do download, list all. Interact explorer with publisher can publish. In terms of the entire permission works, permissions is combination of your site role, this one, whatever your site role has been given, plus the content level permissions, which we talked about in the last two classes. Now, where all it works, first is the project level we can do. We can create permissions and we can lock it. So if you lock the permission, that will be inherited to the content within the project. So what we have is in the project. So first is project. Within the project you have workbooks, and you can have your data workbooks. Within the workbook you have your actual views or your dashboards. You can also have workbooks and data sources here. So you can set up the permission at the project level. Either you wanted to lock it or don't lock it. If you don't lock it, the permissions will be managed independently at workbook level, data source level, and view level. That is what it's all about, right? If you go to content, project level permissions here, go to sales level permission. I don't want to lock it. I wanted to manage independently of all these capabilities, whatever you can download, cannot download, edit, etc. Or I wanted to manage at individual workbook level, go to permissions and here. And we already learned about how do we add a users. You can also, if you wanted to add the multiple hundreds of users, how do we import yours from a CSV file? Please go ahead and learn it. It's just straightforward. There won't be a column name. Directly you have to put the username, password, this site code, a default password, and you can change later. Or usually in the real world, it will be kind of an Active Directory or some third-party authentication. So you don't import the hundreds of users directly here. You will import the group like distribution list, like yesterday I said. We go to groups, even we will be imported groups, but since we created individual groups here and we mapped this group to the content level permissions. Okay. Now the same team is coming back and asking, hey, I've created some, now I want to schedule sometimes, right? Obviously I want to daily refresh. I want my 8 a.m. in the morning. I want 7 a.m. in the morning. I am bringing a huge amount of data. How do I schedule my refreshes? Refresh basically means your extract of data, not a live connection. Live means it's already live. We don't need anything to subscribe. Anything to schedule, right? Now, for that, you go to schedule. Remember the schedules, right? Nobody will see. Even the site administrator cannot see this schedules. To prove that, let me go to the users. You see, I already have, I'm the site administrator, right? For a sales one. Just remember this screen, okay? Right now, I'm the server admin and I'm going to log in as a here. You can see site administrator. You can see content, users, groups, but you cannot see schedule. You can see that if I go ahead and say, just to show my content, I am the server admin. That's why I can see everything. That is why I can even see, if we go to manage all content, only I would be able to see this screen, whatever this green tick mark, else you cannot see that. And for that, you see, I have to go to all sites. If I go to individual site level, right, you don't see that. If you go to say, you only see this one. This admin views basically your statistics of how the usage, right, which user is using the most, what data source are they using, what, how many jobs have run, etc. This is again is specific to the site administrator only. Explorer can publish, cannot see it. Nobody else can see this screen other than the site administrator. But this one which I was talking about, let's see if a site administrator can see schedules or not. Sign up. So I'm going to log in as a tab-a. He is an administrator. Tab-a, who is an administrator for my sales site. Okay, he can see some schedules. Let's see. First thing, understand whether he is the right one. Site administrator. Okay, now you can see what you can see. You can see content. You can see users. You can see groups. You can see schedules also. I can see schedules. Okay, what you can do then? Let me take my step back. You can see status. You cannot see the green tick, but you can see as an administrator. Schedules, he can see what is the default schedule that has already been created by a server admin. He cannot create a new schedule. He can see the schedules tab, but he cannot create it. You see, you don't see an option to create a new schedule here at all, right? These are already there in the platform. So tomorrow, if somebody wants to leverage and see, if I'm assume that I'm the developer, if I wanted to see what all schedules I have, assume that I'm the developer, I'm on Tableau, right? Let's go back to this one. I'm going to build a new report. This is how exactly what they do. I'm going to show you something. Okay. So I'm connected to data source. Irrespective of the data source, I've just pulled my data. I'm going to say extract because I want my initial first time I'm going to create an extract, and I'm going to save it, and then I'll publish this extract, and I'll say, hey, I want the same extract to be refreshed on my server, right? You can see we have two cylinders. And sales amount by some hierarchy. Alright, so I have two cylinders, and I want, while publishing itself, I have the publisher role here, publish the workbook, and I wanted to refresh this extract while publishing it. This is an extract workbook, and I'll say some schedules has to be mentioned, right? What schedule it say? While publishing itself, we can see here, refresh schedule extract, full extract, and you can see all the list of it. You see only 3 extracts as of now. End of month, Saturday night, and weekday early morning. Now let's compare this with this one. End of month we have, and then Saturday nights, weekday morning. But why can't we see these things? So these two are for flows, okay? Whatever you see for flows. This is also for flow. This is also for flow. First, you need to understand these are some default. This is the only 3. When you install Tableau, right? This is for subscription, means to get your email alerts. This is for flow, means this is for your data preparation flow, which I told about, like an ETL tools kind of thing, right? That is for this. But for extract, refresh, data refresh, they have only 3. That is what you see, these 3 on the Tableau desktop. You can see I have 3. End of the month, Saturday night, weekday early morning. Okay, 4 a.m. You can see those 3 are there here in my here. Weekly, weekday, Saturday early morning, Saturday night, end of the month. Extract refreshes. Now, if you wanted to, as a publisher, you can only choose what you wanted. You can only choose from here. And you can see end of the month, the last day of every month at 11 p.m. Okay, what is 11 p.m.? 11 p.m. of this local time machine, wherever this machine is been installed. If it's installed in your EST, PST, whatever it is, that time of 11 p.m. Okay. And then if you publish this one, it will show extract, let's say extract workbook 2. I'm going to publish this. Now you can see here. Now this is the workbook, right? Workbook symbol, and this workbook has one data source and it has one refresh also. If you click on refresh extract, you can see full refresh is end of the month, and I'm talking about priority little late tomorrow. So next update, last update is never, because we never refresh. Next update is going to be end of the month, so it's going to be 31st. If you wanted to change, you can always change. Just click on this one. You can see what it's showing on the last day of the month. Next one is this time. You click on this details. Here it's enabled. You wanted to change this refresh, so you can run immediately right away if you want to run. You want to change the schedule. You can only choose whatever was available on the out of those three. So what we learned is, as a site administrator, you can see this here, the schedule. I think even this guy also was able to see my content. Yeah, I'm the site administrator. So site administrator can see schedules, but he cannot create a new schedule. Only the server admin can create a new schedule. And remember, till today, the schedules are not specific to site level, which means if you create an end of a month schedule, right, you cannot tell, hey, this end of month schedule should only be seen by sales side, but not other side. There was no mechanism. They're actually coming up with a new, but so far you cannot, hide a few schedules. I'll tell you the reason why it came. Because we have somebody, who has been, heavily costed for Tableau application. They want some schedules to be run during a business hours. We can't tell them no because they have been highly paid for this installations and everything. They are the one who has actually invested for this. So I can go ahead and create, let's say, every day at 10 a.m. in the morning. So 10 a.m. is a busy schedule. But because I cannot control other site users not to see the schedule, right? I don't have a control. Or today we don't have a control. Any user, assume that there's a new other application and the requirement is they want to publish at 10 a.m. right? If they go to this server and they want to do some extract, and the moment they scroll down they can see it here, irrespective of the site, because entire schedules will be shown in the list. They are not site level specific. So what are we doing for today to hide that? To hide that, we're simply creating, instead of saying this 11 p.m., 12 p.m., right? We are giving the name as specific application. Let's say this is a managerial of some site. So they don't know what it is, right? If I simply don't mention it. Somehow we are managing that. But Tableau is coming up with again a site level also. You see that. Schedules comes into picture for refreshing your daily extract nightly. There are three different types of schedule. One is the data refresh called extract. Extract means extracting the data from your data source. How much data you want to extract, that's up to you. Subset of data, that's why it's called extract, and you want to refresh. Second one is you wanted to receive an email with some subscription. You go ahead and subscribe to the report. That report should come to your inbox. That's why it's called as the subscription of schedule. Flow is basically for your data flows. You don't worry about this one unless you use this tool, then only. And schedule, only the server administrator can create schedule. The site administrator cannot create, but the site admin can see all the schedules on the screen. That's all I have for today.